Right here tonight, an all-new season of 2020.
And this story couldn't have more twists and turns. A beloved doctor missing, then found dead.
A man with no enemies, but a lot of secrets. An all-new 2020 starts right now.
Dr. Garcia, police department, make yourself known, sir. Here's the master bedroom. Dr. Garcia? Dr. Garcia, Officer Miller.
You've got your gun pulled and you're ready for anything.
He's here.
It says he's here. Dr. Garcia was deceased on the couch.
Is this real? How could this have happened?
He was the most gentle, kind, wonderful soul you could imagine.
This doctor, this paragon of the community, was found dead in his house.
He's been robbed. He's not just dead, he's been robbed.
There were racks and racks that were empty. There was no gold. There was no silver found. I have so many questions about the case and have hardly any answers.
You don't know if it's natural causes, if it's self-inflicted, or if someone has murdered him.
My life became a true crime show.
Who is this guy and where is all this money going to? So what is that relationship?
And I said, you can't let that guy go. There's something wrong here.
We're on our way to Ketchikan, Alaska, the Rock. To get here, you have to either take a plane or take a boat. And if you take a plane, you still have to take a boat. Because the airport is located on one island and Ketchikan proper is located here. It's beautiful enough that it's a place worth coming to. It's remote enough that it's a place worth escaping the place you came from. And it's also the site of an enduring and deep mystery involving one of this town's most respected and well-regarded citizens. It all began with one out-of-the-blue phone call.
City Dispatch, may I help you?
Hi, I'm trying to do a wellness check on a friend of mine that's in Ketchikan.
Okay, what's his or her name?
Eric Garcia, and I haven't heard from him, so I'm getting worried.
On March 18th of 2017, Ketchikan Police Department, we had a welfare check call come in. This person actually is from the Seattle area.
He says he's a friend named Jordan Joplin.
He's the general surgeon there. I just want to make sure that he's okay.
Okay.
We had an officer respond to the doctor's house.
What is a welfare check exactly?
Basically, somebody is concerned about somebody's well-being.
Officer Devin Miller had lived in Alaska since he was 3 years old, and on that day in 2017, he was on patrol, and he was sent to Dr. Garcia's house. How often would you be asked to do a welfare check by someone who lived a long ways away?
I gotta tell you, that's the rarity. I responded and drove up to the residence. There was snow on the ground. I could see that there was no tire tracks.
What did you do when you got here?
Checked the house, made sure it was secure. We looked for any kind of footprints. Everything was secure. Lights were on at the house.
Did you try to get into the house on the 18th?
I did check the lock to make sure it was locked.
What did that tell you?
Looked like typical of what somebody does when they go on vacation. After that, I contacted his office.
The police learn that Dr. Garcia's colleagues, they're aware he has plans to be out of town. He's attending a medical conference in Las Vegas. This is a conference he attended every year about this time. It's about a 7 to 10 day trip. So that's that, right?
That's that.
You don't have to get back in touch with the caller.
I do not.
But Dawn Hink, now she manages Dr. Garcia's schedule at the hospital, and she's his very good friend. She's not the one who took that initial call from the police. So officers are unaware that she was getting a little concerned that she hadn't heard from Dr. Garcia.
Dr. Garcia would send me messages probably 20, 30 times a day when he was on vacation. We were in constant contact where he was, how much fun he was having. I had sent him a message and didn't receive anything back at all. So it definitely struck me as odd.
Any questions or worries about Dr. Garcia would be kind of big news here. Ketchikan is a small town, and he's only one of 2 general surgeons for the whole area.
We don't have a lot of doctors here. It's such a small community.
He was often the only one here. He'd have to take care of an awful lot of things. that you might not take care of if he was working in a large metropolitan community.
What kind of surgeries was he doing for the most part?
Any kind of trauma,
Logging accidents.
gallbladders, logging accidents, helicopter crashes. We have tons of different unique situations up here that are unparalleled to anywhere else.
Dr. Garcia had become a beloved presence since moving here to Ketchikan, a town he first discovered the same way so many other people do, on an Alaskan cruise.
So Alaska is an enormous state. There's also a panhandle that comes quite far down. Ketchikan is the southernmost city in that panhandle. So Ketchikan's the first stop for most cruise ships coming north into Alaska, and it's the last stop for cruise ships heading down to the lower 48.
Population of Ketchikan's about 8,000 or so, but that comes with an asterisk, because between the months of April and October, Ketchikan is a cruise ship mecca. As many as 15,000 passengers disembark from these massive boats every single day. What is it like when it's busy here?
Wall-to-wall folks stumbling over each other. It's good for our economy.
They want to see whales, they want to see eagles, they want to see bears, all of which we have. And of course, people come here a lot to catch the fish. We're known for being what we call the salmon capital of the world.
Locals and cruise ship tourists, Dr. Garcia treated them all with the help of Don Hink, who later in mid-March 2017 received a troubling call about Dr. Garcia's whereabouts.
I got a phone call from Dr. Garcia's mother, and she had asked me to please go to the house and see if I could find out, if he was there, because he wasn't responding to anything she was doing. And so I did that. Everything at the house seemed to look pretty normal. The vehicle was not there. We drove past the airport lot, and Eric's truck was there, just as if he was going to be going on a vacation. And so everything seemed okay.
With signs pointing to Dr. Garcia being out of town, the police say they've followed their standard operating procedures.
In order for us to enter a house or to forcibly go inside of the house, we're going to need some kind of an exigent circumstance. In the case of Dr. Garcia, we didn't have those circumstances.
Then, 6 days after that phone call for a wellness check, Jordan Joplin, the friend from Washington State, calls again.
Basically trying to find out if they got a hold of Eric or if because I know that Saturday he was supposed to come here to Washington, which is where I'm at.
Joplin says that Dr. Garcia did not follow through on those plans, and he's still concerned that something is not right.
So what degree does that move the needle?
It really didn't move the needle much at all. I don't know that the information had really changed much.
But the next day, Joplin calls for a third time.
Nobody's heard from him yet. He gave me a house key, and I'm going up there on Monday because I haven't heard anything, and I am very worried. I did talk to a lawyer, and he said that I could talk to you guys, and I can give you guys permission to go in there, but I would have to physically be there. So
We're more than welcome to go do that for you.
Yeah, Joplin? Yeah, okay.
And so, on the morning of March 27th, it's Joplin showing up to open Dr. Garcia's front door. But police officers keep him outside the house, where he waits with a concerned Don Hink. What happens over the next 90 seconds or so will set off torrents of emotion and unveil a mystery that's filled with sick twists and shocking turns. The police enter the residence with their guns drawn, and then...
Dr. Garcia! Police Department! Can you make yourself known, sir?
This close friend that had been calling the Ketchikan Police Department for the welfare check of Dr. Garcia, Jordan Joplin, called once again and said that he was just arriving from Seattle.
You had this guy in town who said he had keys to the house, and he wanted you to accompany him.
Yeah, we provide a service, and we were going to provide that service. Sergeant Sheehan and I got there around 9 o'clock in the morning. The house looked the same as when I was there before, so we just waited for Mr. Joplin.
It was kind of a big house for a single guy like Dr. Eric Garcia, but the only in Alaska views must have suited the 58-year-old surgeon who had arrived here 8 years earlier, his latest stop on a journey that began more than 4,000 miles away. Puerto Rico.
Which town in Puerto Rico? Was it Ponce, which is the southern side of the island? Our grandmother had a heart defect, so for him to pursue medicine, it was important so that he could help the family. I think he knew that to get his specialty that he wanted to, he was going to have to leave.
After he finished his residency program, he moved to Eagle Pass.
On the Rio Grande, the border between Texas and Mexico, Eagle Pass has about 30,000 residents. So back in the mid-90s, it's an opportunity for a young surgeon like Eric Garcia to do it all.
When you are a general surgeon in a small town, you get to do a lot of things.
Did he like the kind of big fish in a small pond
I believe so. He could be more prominent that way, more involved, would have more impact.
He loved to travel. We traveled the world together. We decided to take one of those Alaska cruises that took place in September 2004. That was the first time he went to Ketchikan.
He really liked Ketchikan.
A few years later, a recruit called him to try to get a general surgeon for Ketchikan.
I thought, oh, of all places, Alaska? I mean, that's pretty far away.
Far away for him, indeed. On paper, anyway, Dr. Garcia seemed like a fish out of water.
Dr. Kolach from Juneau is on line 1.
We only have one line.
Not unlike Dr. Joel Fleischman, played by Rob Morrow in the 1990s TV series Northern Exposure. But in reality, Dr. Garcia was a huge hit, with coworkers and with the townspeople, too. They admired both his surgical skill and his personal warmth.
I met Dr. Garcia probably a week or so into my work. And he was the most gentle, kind, wonderful soul you could imagine. We were extremely close. He would come over to our house for family and friend gatherings, most holidays.
He was very easy to like. Always pleasant, always fun to be around. You know, sometimes you run into people you like running into. He was one of those people.
Jackson had sold Dr. Garcia that house. Their bond was a close one. Now, on the morning of March 27th, 2017, he'd be joining his friend Dawn Hink up there. Just minutes after, she and Jordan Joplin arrived at the site to meet the police.
I see 2 vehicles drive up the driveway, and one was a red Ford truck, which I knew Dr. Garcia drove a red Ford truck.
They said he had a red truck. Is this the truck? Wait, pick it up, yeah. Where'd you find that? Out of the airport.
The officers are recording on body cameras. Now let's take a look.
That's Mr. Joplin.
This is Jordan Joplin using his keys to open the front door.
Correct.
Dr. Garcia! Police department!
What did you expect to find?
An empty home.
Can you make yourself known, sir?
Typical procedure. We'd announce Ketchikan Police Department. Let it be known if you're inside. There was no response.
Dr. Garcia? Dr. Garcia! Officer Miller! Police department!
You've got your gun pulled and you're ready for anything.
It's standard for how we enter a residence. We're worried. We're checking anywhere somebody could hide. We just want to make it sure it is secure. We cleared the first floor and started moving up the stairs to the second floor.
Hello, Dr. Garcia!
That's Sergeant Cheatham in front of me. He reached the top of the stairs and he said that he found the deceased. Dr. Garcia was deceased on the couch. I think my mind just went, this doesn't make sense.
Can you guys step on?
Just outside the front door, it's Sergeant Cheatham who has to break the news to Dr. Garcia's friends.
There's no easy way to put this, but he has passed away.
Jackson had arrived just in time to hear what had happened to his friend Dr. Garcia.
We were all upset. Everyone there, I was probably briefly in shock.
I walked to the opposite side of the house as far away as I could get, just despair at that point.
Dawn Hink is brokenhearted, undone. She is totally distraught. And Garcia's friend from Washington, Jordan Joplin, says he is hurting physically.
No, I don't blame you. I have heart issues. Okay. You need to
Go to the hospital. We can get you to the hospital. If you want to go sit down, go sit down.
Joplin recovers, but as the news spreads around Ketchikan, the entire town goes into shock.
What did you think about when you heard that news?
I guess kind of panic. Not really wanting to believe that. You know, is this real? How could this have happened?
I didn't believe it at first. No, it can't be. But it was.
Garcia's mother had been worried that he was not returning her calls. Now, from thousands of miles away, Dr. Garcia's brother Saul is calling the Ketchikan police for an update.
My wife and I were in a conference room, and we called. We were both sitting there calling, and I had the officer on speakerphone, and he's telling us this. Your brother was found dead.
The police start trying to figure out what exactly has happened to Dr. Garcia, and they start to learn that the good-hearted doctor actually had some health problems.
Major heart issues. He was being hospitalized this January.
This year?
This year. They hospitalized him overnight here in Ketchikan.
My first impression is like, oh, maybe, there was an event with his heart to the point that now he passed away.
We can make theories on how we think somebody dies, but we just won't know until we get the autopsy results back from the state medical examiner.
But after police discovered what's behind this locked door, their thinking will totally pivot. The matter is more criminal. It's a shocking find. This town's revered surgeon, Dr. Eric Garcia, dead on the couch in his home. But how? Ketchikan, Alaska police, they've got a locked door mystery on their hands. A scene that's filled with clues. And right from the start, something about this scene just doesn't smell right.
Coming up the stairs, it smelled like barbecue briquettes.
You're talking like lighter fluid and
yes,
charcoal briquettes?
Exactly. The deck door was wide open, propped open by a pillow, and the barbecue was right there with burnt ash in it.
A lot of people might barbecue on a deck, but not many people would prop the door open with pillows. Did that strike you as something unusual?
Very unusual.
Around the body, there was actually a pill bottle that had Dr. Garcia's name on it. Next to the doctor was a coffee table that was pushed up close to the couch where he was located.
There was an open package of bacon, and there was a partially burned charcoal briquette on the coffee table.
Outside the house, grief continues to wash over the friends of Dr. Garcia. But Bobby Jackson is agitated about something.
This house needs to be secured. Yeah, we'll take care of it. I mean, the alarm needs to be set. What I'm saying is there's stuff in there that needs to be locked up.
And when Devin Miller comes downstairs, Jackson pulls the officer aside.
And he said, there's a storage area underneath the stairs that is locked, and it is got gold and coins and silver in there, and a large collection of collectible alcohol.
Dr. Garcia had hundreds of mostly silver. He had some gold, but he collected gold coins and some of the mint coins. And he had a lot. When I moved him from his rental to Dr. Garcia's new house that he purchased, it sagged the back of my car down. He had so much gold and silver in there.
When did the coin collecting and the collecting in general begin in earnest, from what you can remember?
So we were exposed to that from my dad. He started ordering coins, and it could be gold coins or silver coins. Then he started buying some gold ingots and stuff like that, and silver.
He had many, many watches, probably about 20 high-end watches. And every time he'd show me one, he would tell me how much it cost. This one was $1,600. This was $2,400. He also bought a lot of hard liquor.
He had this huge liquor collection.
Was he much of a drinker?
He liked his, here or there, but it was mostly for the having these things.
Friends say that he had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gold, silver, and other valuables.
So detectives rushed to open the deadbolt door because to confirm Dr. Garcia's prized possessions are still in the house.
I contacted Mr. Joplin, and so I had him open the door and looked inside.
There was no gold. There was no silver found. There were racks and racks that were empty.
I did not see a large collection of alcohol or coins or gold or anything. There was 30 or 40 bottles.
I looked in and I said, everything's gone. It's all gone. There was nothing left. I said, he's been robbed. He's not just dead, he's been robbed.
But what's going through your heart at this moment?
Oh, it was just utter disbelief. And then it even became some anger.
According to Bobby Jackson, Dr. Garcia's close friends had wanted to build Dr. Garcia a more secure place for his treasures, but now they were gone. And oddly so, because the storage door had been locked, just like the front door was.
The house was not broken into. There was no forced entry.
There were no outward signs, and with the items missing, it meant we had a major theft.
Detectives were called and asked to come in and help investigate.
But remember, detectives have no idea if any of this is related to Dr. Garcia's death. Because after all, friends said he just loved to give away some of these valuables as gifts to friends, even to patients.
What I've learned about Dr. Garcia through the course of the investigation is that he was very generous and shared things often with those that he loved and was close to. He would share portions of that alcohol collection that he had. He would gift gold coins.
He would buy things for his co-workers, for his friends. He was very generous. Very generous not only with gifts, but with his time and with his service.
I mean, he had no bounds. He just, hey, you like that? Is that cool? Have it, And it's a gold nugget. It's an expensive piece of jewelry. Normal people don't just give to whoever. It struck me as an odd thing. It was like, ooh, that could be bad.
The randomness of it kind of concerned you.
Mm-hmm.
Why exactly?
It just throws red flags. You can collect some unsavory people that way.
Perhaps there's a very good reason why virtually all of Dr. Garcia's valuables are gone. Maybe he didn't plan on being on Earth much longer.
Hi, this is Jordan Joplin.
In fact, close friend Jordan Joplin had told police on the phone that he'd feared Garcia might have harmed himself.
I am very worried. He's been missing, and he was contemplating suicide. Nobody's heard from him, his parents. 10 days it's been.
Okay. This is news to friends and family who didn't see any evidence that Dr. Garcia was depressed or suicidal. So as investigators take up this trail of the luxury goods, the question of exactly how Dr. Garcia died becomes even more important. They are now looking at Dr. Garcia's mysterious death in an entirely new light.
Knowing that the missing valuables were gone, it really changes things immensely.
Cops are intrigued enough by what they found here inside the house, but what else is missing might be more mysterious still. Like, what's all that on the wall?
It changes everything.
And away we go.
Sunny Ketchikan.
It looks quite nice today. For police here in Ketchikan, Alaska, like Deputy Chief Eric Mattson, the disappearance of what authorities believe to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in luxury items from the house of Dr. Eric Garcia adds to the mystery in the wake of his sudden and unexplained death.
I have so many questions about the case and have hardly any answers. So it's frustrating not knowing.
And you don't know if it's natural causes, if it's self-inflicted, or if someone has murdered him.
I don't know any of those answers in that moment.
And for cops, there's a big riddle in plain sight, all over the walls of the house. What was all that? All those? They look like bases for multiple smoke detectors.
Every single place that a smoke detector was located or should have been was just the base with the wiring harness sticking out. There was not one smoke detector inside that house. They were all missing.
That struck Garcia's close friends as extremely odd. Dawn Hinks saying she couldn't imagine Dr. Garcia getting up on a ladder to remove those smoke detectors.
And there were other details of how his house was found that day that Dawn says made absolutely no sense. Like that barbecue that was found upstairs reeking of lighter fluid. Well, Dawn says Dr. Garcia was never known to grill. His loved ones describe a man who had difficulty doing anything for himself.
A lot of times they called me his work wife, picking up dry cleaning, making and bringing his lunch.
He is so committed to this career that he's not doing anything else. So his house could be on fire. He has to call somebody else to go, hey, can you check on that fire? Maybe see if you can call the police or something.
Given the circumstances and the mystery surrounding his brother's death, Saul Garcia decides to make his way to Ketchikan just hours after getting the heartbreaking news. He's got questions of his own to answer about his older brother, who, according to Saul, rarely shared with him details of his private life. Do you think he was lonely?
Yes. And the reason for that is after he died, I went to his house.
Alone one night, in the house Dr. Garcia said he loved, his brother Saul is seized by a powerful feeling.
I was by myself, and it was so lonely there. There's no lights outside, it's so quiet, and inside that house, I just felt the loneliness. I just could not imagine him living in there.
So, what might such apparent loneliness have driven Dr. Eric Garcia to do? That question reverberating weeks later when the toxicology results are released, revealing what killed Dr. Garcia, an overdose of morphine. But it's curious because there's no morphine located in Dr. Garcia's home by authorities.
There was no sign of injection, so it had to have been consumed.
So that's noteworthy. Morphine found in his stomach. So that means it was swallowed, not injected. Also, there are traces in his bloodstream of a prescription sedative. Was that the empty bottle by his body? And then there's this. Garcia's blood also had an elevated carbon monoxide level.
The toxicology report revealed a 9% value of carbon monoxide.
Now that is 4 times the normal limit. So this raises the attention of police when you consider all the other aspects of this case that they've learned.
Remember, cops noted a strong smell of lighter fluid in the house, and the upstairs deck door propped open with a charcoal grill placed right at the door.
The deck is on the windward side of the house.
That's the southeast side.
Southeast side of the house.
To Officer Miller, that was one of the oddest details of all, because everyone in town knew in Ketchikan, you did not mess with the southeast wind. So no one in Ketchikan who was a resident here, in your view, would ever have barbecued on the southeast side of their house.
Especially on the second floor that's going to get some wind.
So maybe Dr. Garcia didn't know about the wind. I mean, nobody figured him for the barbecue at home type. Or maybe it was somebody else who'd been manning the grill. And then there are those curious items that turn up on the coffee table next to Dr. Garcia. An open package of bacon, a partially burned charcoal briquette. And as they uncovered the body and examined Dr. Garcia, they noted something else.
I could see his left hand was on his abdomen, and there was charcoal on his fingertips that had gone to his white t-shirt.
That's CO reading on the toxicology report, also making the mystery of the smoke detectors ominous indeed.
I could see that the smoke detectors were removed so that the fumes from the barbecue wouldn't set it off. At this point, I think we suspect there was foul play.
Weeks after Dr. Garcia's passing, Saul Garcia was working remotely from his late brother's home.
Throughout this whole time, I always feel like Eric is very close to me. I always talk to him. I said, Eric, you need to help us. We need to get this thing to a resolution. Are we missing something?
Saul breaks for lunch, and then finds himself strolling a mile or so along the bridge, when suddenly the whole case takes another dramatic and totally unexpected turn.
As I'm walking, I get a ping on my phone, and I pull it out, and as I look at my phone, I notice these white dots down below. I took some pictures with the telephoto lens, and sure enough, those look like the smoke detectors.
Saul immediately calls Ketchikan police. Matson and other officers recover 6 smoke detectors in the woods. Authorities then go back to the house and match the smoke detectors with the 6 empty mounting plates via their serial numbers.
It's looking more and more to police like somebody was trying to get rid of evidence. It looks like somebody may have been involved in Dr. Garcia's death.
The morphine and the combination of the drugs, all the items being stolen, it just all started adding up.
In my gut, this death didn't appear as to what it looked like.
And as police continue to dig into the case, the evidence is going to lead them to a very unlikely suspect. Someone you might think was one of the last people who'd ever commit this crime. In the wake of the death of Eric Garcia, the community of Ketchikan is struggling with the loss of their beloved doctor. And as one of only 2 general surgeons in the area, the death of Dr. Garcia causes a medical crisis.
Dr. Garcia's death impacted the community greatly. There were a variety of patients that required his care. And with his specialty as a general surgeon, people just weren't going to get that from him anymore.
It was a big blow to the community. We really needed another surgeon, so we scrambled for a while to continue surgical coverage.
Meanwhile, the probe in Dr. Eric Garcia's mysterious death, it's become a criminal investigation. Amid the toxicology results, the missing valuables, that strangely placed barbecue grill, and the absent smoke detectors, it's looking like someone might have had a hand in Dr. Garcia's death.
In my gut, this death wasn't what it was as it had appeared.
To unravel that mystery, cops dig deep, and they're looking into every aspect of Garcia's life, including his financial records.
We want bank records to show where he got accounts and what banks.
And they make a startling discovery.
Garcia had made wire transfers to several people, including someone named Logan Cruz.
Where's all this money going to? Who is Logan Cruz?
Turns out police have a pretty good idea of who Logan Cruz is.
Nobody's heard from him yet. And what's your name? My name's Logan. My real name is Jordan Joplin, but everybody calls me Logan. Sorry.
The caller uses 2 different names, and we didn't find out till later what that was about.
Some of Dr. Garcia's friends had met Jordan Joplin, aka Logan Cruz, but still, he was a bit of an enigma to the people on the scene that day when Garcia's body was discovered. He was clearly close to the doctor. Remember, he drove up in Garcia's red pickup truck that day from the airport, accompanied by a girlfriend.
No one really in town knew him. He doesn't have a history in the town at all.
Joplin's demeanor raises a lot of red flags that morning to investigating officers, as well as Dr. Garcia's friends.
Mr. Jackson informed me that nobody knows who Jordan Joplin is.
To Dr. Garcia's friends, Joplin's behavior seems questionable. But he's also the reason everyone assembled for a welfare check in the first place. Remember, he called the cops. He was raising concerns about Garcia's well-being.
He'd been calling the Ketchikan Police Department for the welfare check of Dr. Garcia.
When police descended on Eric Garcia's home in Ketchikan for a welfare check, it was Jordan Joplin who'd flown up from Washington State with a key to open the residence. And the sight of those keys in his hand would be a sight Dawn Hink would never forget.
When he pulled out the keys, I knew there's one set of keys, and he has them. I mean, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
So what is that relationship? Who is this guy?
So we just give them closed doors and privacy.
So after finding the doctor deceased, police have a word or two with the out-of-towner.
Okay, how did you guys meet? I'm just curious. Initially at the airport, actually.
Jordan Joplin tells police there's a reason why he's got Dr. Garcia's keys, because Dr. Garcia gave them to him. He also said Dr. Garcia gave him power of attorney.
You said you have power of attorney? I have a paper that you gave me that says power of attorney. I don't have attorney at the top. Where is it at? It's my house.
When Joplin is asked about the hundreds of thousands in valuables, he has a quick answer. 2 of them, actually. And they contradict each other.
Do you know of any high-value items in the house? No. Anything you think is high? You're obviously... Where do you stay when you're in Ketchikan? Here. Okay. And you're not aware of any high-value items in the house?
Yeah, actually.
Okay. I'm asking you about it because...
Oh, yes.
So, you need to be truthful with us.
For police, suspicions about Garcia's mysterious friend, they're only deepening as police continue to dig deep with their investigation.
One day later, with a warrant, they go through that red pickup truck, Garcia's truck, which Joplin had been driving. There in the glove compartment, they find a vital clue.
In the truck, we found a receipt, the waybill,
from a large company that transports goods all through Alaska along the coast down to the state of Washington.
When we found a receipt in his truck, for me it was something suspicious was going on.
Ketchikan police officers rush to the local shipping company. They're hoping they can find out exactly what is being shipped out of state.
Detective Purcell and I went to investigate to try and get some kind of video.
And what police would spot on surveillance video would take investigators far away from Ketchikan and into the lower 48 on a ticking clock search, and the man might be a murderer. But when the private becomes public, deep secrets will be revealed, shocking the people of Ketchikan.
He's telling me that he wanted to commit suicide, so I'm getting worried.
This doesn't make sense.
Just despair.
Bizarre.
This doctor was found dead in his house. For a city like Ketchikan, this infiltrated the entire community. Everyone was talking about it.
My life became a true crime show.
Police are now looking into every single aspect of Dr. Garcia's life.
Do you think there were aspects of his private life that he thought would be difficult to share with your family?
Yes.
Business related or nope? Friendship related? I think it's more friendship.
Who exactly is Jordan Joplin? And how did a respected doctor in Alaska become entangled with him?
He was two different people.
He was very good at manipulating. Very good.
How good?
Whatever Jordan wanted, Jordan pretty much got, honestly.
This crime scene just became massive.
But nothing in this case is more stunning than the chilling video clip that prosecutors play in court.
Oh my God.
Ketchikan, Alaska, as beautiful and remote as an international pop star, inaccessible by car, abundant fish and wildlife and wondrous vistas that delight the thousands of cruise ship tourists in season. Dr. Eric Garcia took a good look during one of those cruises and left Texas to move here. The kind-hearted physician making a lot of friends among the town's 8,000 year-rounders, grateful to have in their midst such a skilled surgeon.
Dr. Garcia! Officer Miller! Police department!
But March of 2017, there's trouble in paradise. Big trouble. When cops find the beloved Dr. Garcia dead in his home.
He was just the nicest man.
Everybody knew him. Everyone wanted to say hello.
What a nice guy.
Initially, there are questions about his death. Could it be suicide, a heart attack, or something more sinister?
Even after the autopsy was done, the medical examiner did not find any signs of trauma.
After that, the toxicology report came back and showed he had actually died of a morphine overdose. But the question is, how did that morphine get in his system?
So what or who had taken the life of this trusted physician? And could this scenic hideaway of fewer than 10,000 residents be harboring a murderer? Dr. Garcia's house, a locked door mystery filled with potential clues. A barbecue grill by an open door, a charcoal briquette on a table, missing smoke detectors discovered tossed into nearby woods. Precious items of value that should be here, but aren't anymore. Is your sense that whatever is missing from the house is directly connected to the death of Dr. Garcia?
I don't know that we knew that it was directly related to the death.
But remember that shipping receipt the cops found inside Dr. Garcia's truck? It's a potentially huge clue.
It's that right there.
Yes, sir. This is a close-up of that receipt from AML, Alaska Marine Lines. It's a barge company that ships products to and from Ketchikan. Essentially, it was a receipt that was in the name of Jordan Joplin, listing the doctor's address as the shipper address to Jordan Joplin in Maple Valley, Washington. The container weight was total about 4,400 pounds.
2 tons of stuff from Dr. Garcia's place, headed to the lower 48? Really? Cops need to know more about that shipment's stat, and if the often generous Dr. Garcia knew anything about it. Another discovery starts to offer some answers.
I did locate a Walmart receipt that was in the garbage in the kitchen.
That Walmart receipt listed several items, notably several plastic bins or totes, things that you would store a variety of items in, just plastic boxes with lids.
We do have a few questions for you.
Interestingly, Walmart actually was discussed the first time the cops interviewed Jordan Joplin the day Dr. Garcia's body was discovered. As he's asked about his last visit to Ketchikan, Joplin says the two men went to the store together.
Yeah, I think it was 16th is when I used his truck.
Okay, because you'd have to return the truck to him.
Well, he was so we went to Walmart.
So the police follow up. They come here to the only Walmart in Ketchikan, and what they find on the store's surveillance security camera marks a big moment in this investigation.
What you see is Jordan Joplin moving about Walmart from various different angles.
Walmart has an enormous amount of cameras, and essentially we followed him through the store.
It shows him from the side, it shows him from above. It just shows Jordan Joplin checking out with all these stacked plastic bins in his cart. One of the camera angles actually shows Jordan Joplin with a huge grin on his face.
He had an employee from Walmart help him with another cart because he had that many bins. So once all those items were loaded back into the truck, Mr. Joplin got back into the truck and departed the parking lot.
But what you don't see is Dr. Eric Garcia. He's not in a single shot. I mean, in the very first interview, Joplin says that he went with Dr. Garcia to Walmart together, so it shows a lie.
This raises even more questions for authorities about Jordan's shipment at AML, Alaska Marine Lines.
So at the time, Detective Purcell and I went to AML to investigate.
And what are those things that you're expecting to see?
So we're just trying to find out the logistics and where the physical items are at.
That's the point in time where we saw video footage of Dr. Garcia's truck, and then Jordan Joplin coming and going from the vehicle and unloading items.
Detectives now know Jordan Joplin used those plastic crates they saw him buy at Walmart to load something into shipping containers. Bad news, it all happened 10 days earlier.
The containers actually were already gone. They were already on the barge on their way to Seattle.
But now that we realized and found that the property was now in transit, this crime scene just became massive. It went from Ketchikan, Alaska, down to Seattle, Washington.
And what did you know definitively about the stuff you were trying to find?
We didn't know anything.
Whatever is inside those containers, detectives want to get their hands on it before Jordan Joplin does. They take off for Seattle, and the clock is ticking.
I've been involved in a lot of cases, but this one was pretty fast moving. There was definitely a sense of urgency.
The two detectives joined their partner, Officer Devin Miller.
It is highly unusual for City of Ketchikan police officers to go to the lower 48.
They are headed to this facility in the port of Seattle. It's a race against time. The discovery of a shipping receipt in Dr. Garcia's truck with Jordan Joplin's name on it leads investigators to a shipping company in Ketchikan. Only there they discover that 2 tons of stuff has already left Alaska. The containers that Joplin has had sent have already arrived here in Seattle. They're at the port. So officers in Ketchikan hop a plane toot sweet.
We were trying to get those containers before anybody else did.
Sergeant Madsen, Detective Purcell, and myself got onto a plane and went to Seattle.
We went to AML on East Marginal Way in Seattle, Washington, and found the containers. They had already been set aside and secured by AML personnel. We cut the locks that were secured on the containers and started to open them.
Oh my God.
There were cases of coins and collectibles, the gold and silver. There were hundreds of bottles. It was a massive collection. These boxes were so full, it almost seemed like they were overspilling when we opened them.
His entire life, his computers, personal checks, bank checks in the name of Dr. Garcia, passport in the name of Dr. Garcia.
Cops now have thousands of dollars of Dr. Garcia's missing stuff, and it's just the beginning. Next up in their plan, place Jordan Joplin under arrest for theft. For this, Ketchikan cops need the able assistance of King County law enforcement.
It's an out-of-state agency. It's their investigation. They've developed the probable cause for the arrest, so they need a local agency with them to both help them make the arrest, draft any search warrants that need to be done.
The Seattle cops want to lure Joplin out of his house so that he can be arrested at And it turns out, according to the shipping company, Joplin has been just itching to take possession of that precious cargo.
We knew that he had been calling. I think he was a manager, and he talked about, this guy's been calling all the time. I'm like, great, well, have him call him back and tell him to come down here.
I gave Jordan a call. He wanted to know if his shipment was in, and I said, no, there's a snafu.
So this was a ruse cooked up to try to get him out of that house and get him in a place where you could get a good look at him, so to speak. And as sure as the rain in Seattle, Joplin shows up at the appointed time.
We can park here. Just hop out here. I introduced myself. Hey, I'm with the sheriff's office. I need to speak with you. I gotta go talk to these guys. And I stopped him and said, no, you need to stay here. These are detectives from Alaska, to which his response was something along the lines of, I don't want to talk to any of you guys. You can just talk to my attorney. And it's at that point that I said, well, you are under arrest.
He was treating you like the help.
Yeah, he was very dismissive.
With Joplin in custody, it's now time for part B of the plan. Are you in the lead car as you do this?
Yes, I
would make the drive. That's executing a search warrant at his residence. But while Joplin is no longer at home, there is someone there to answer the door.
I was his fiance. At first, I looked out our bedroom door. There was a bunch of unmarked cars, police officers with bulletproof vests on, and I'm like completely naked. I'd just gotten out of the shower, and I was like...
For investigators, it's just one of many surprises they're going to uncover with Joplin. Remember, that day he had showed up at Dr. Garcia's house, he was with another woman he identified as his girlfriend.
I did have concerns that he was maybe cheating on me with her, but at that point, I wasn't 100% sure. It wasn't until after our house got raided that I found out, so...
Kristen may have suspected Jordan was cheating, but she was adamant she knew nothing about what had brought this small armada of police to her doorstep.
I stood outside of my house for 6 hours. I took my phone, took all my electronics, because the warrant was on my name as well.
She asked where Jordan was, and I said, well, he's talking to some detectives from Alaska right now. What do you know about Jordan's relationship with Dr. Garcia? What about some of this property that's here?
They were like, we are not interested in you. We are just interested in Jordan.
She was aware of everything coming in from the doctor over a period of time. But according to her, from Jordan, this was all just a gift from the doctor.
I was just trying to process of where I missed these flags.
The woman who accompanied Joplin to Ketchikan and Kristen were both cleared by law enforcement. Meanwhile, cops swarm the site, and all the evidence they retrieve is sent to Ketchikan police.
Notably, during that search warrant, detectives had found a Faraday bag that contained the doctor's cell phones. The Faraday bag is essentially an electronic blocking bag or device. Once it's placed in there, is cut off from that communication and hides the signals. We also found, in another location, Dr. Garcia's wallet with his ID. Jordan Joplin was charged with theft in the first degree.
Joplin would plead not guilty, but really his arrest is just the start of unraveling this mystery. And the more investigators dig into his background, the more they wonder, who exactly is Jordan Joplin? And how did a respected doctor in Alaska become entangled with him?
A mass manipulator.
He was two different people.
Out to get whatever he needs at that moment and then to move on like a tornado.
That police raid in Maple Valley, Washington, during late March 2017, would mark the beginning of what she describes as one big wake-up call for Joplin's fiancée, Kristen Coles Nelson.
My life became a true crime show. When they showed up at my house and they first announced that they were cops and stuff, they say we're the Washington County Sheriff Department, and then the guy behind him said, I am a sheriff from Ketchikan. And I looked at them puzzled. I think I said, does this have to do with Eric? And then they asked me why I thought that, and I was like, well, he just passed away, and I know that he was terminally ill.
But of course, Dr. Eric Garcia was never terminally ill. Kristen says she immediately realized that was just a lie Joplin had told her to explain his increasingly frequent trips to Alaska.
My world turned upside down and inside out. He did have two sides. He had this facade that he put out, that he was a great person and that he didn't like liars, but he was one himself. I didn't know what to believe, what was the truth.
The truth could be a rude awakening for those who knew Jordan Joplin. And as investigators were discovering, Joplin's trouble in Alaska was not his first brush with the law. Jordan Joplin had grown up here in Forks, Washington, the town made famous in the Twilight films.
In the state of Washington, under near constant cover of clouds and rain, there's a small town named Forks. Population, 3,120 people.
Jordan's dream was just to take care of everybody. Aunt Sandy, I'm going to get rich and I'm going to take care of all you.
Sandy Flores and her husband were raising 3 boys in Forks when her younger sister Debbie moved to town after a divorce. Her youngest, Jordan, was just a year and a half.
He was very impulsive, I think is the word to use. Instead of thinking about it, he would just do something and then go, oh wow, that was fun, let's do it again.
Jordan Joplin was all grown up by the time this young woman encountered him in the summertime of 2010.
He was very high energy, and so that was just, that positivity was kind of infectious.
Jessica Everton met Jordan Joplin in Bonnie Lake, Washington, that's near Tacoma, while they were each working at a food bank that was run by her father. Jessica knew Jordan was there for community service. And here's what the young single mother says she did not know, that it was ordered after he was convicted of 2 felonies, after abandoning his car and then claiming it had been stolen. Investigators became suspicious when they noticed he had filed an insurance claim 3 hours before reporting he'd left the vehicle on the side of the road. Oh, those impulses.
He was very kind. He listened. Once my dad got hurt, Jordan kind of took over what my dad's duties were. Anything that my dad needed, Jordan was on top of doing.
And that's when you started going out with him?
That's essentially, yes. He was intoxicating. He really was. And then he used that to manipulate. He was very good at manipulating. Very good.
Summer ended, and so had Jordan's community service. Joplin telling Jessica he was working as a personal trainer. She never saw any clients. He was, however, spending plenty of time at the gym.
He was an aspiring stripper.
How did he look with his shirt off?
Gorgeous.
Jessica said her relationship with Joplin took a dramatic turn after a Christmas shopping trip in 2010.
We were shopping at Walmart. As we walked out, we got swarmed. They're accusing me of stealing. I'm flabbergasted.
Walmart security accused the couple of shoplifting a number of GPS units from the store.
The police showed up and we were arrested, and we were both placed in the same squad car.
Could you ever have imagined in your life you would end up in the back of a squad car?
No. Or with somebody next to me saying, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me.
The police report noted that Jessica and Jordan said the theft was his idea. They were both charged. And what happened to the charges against you?
They ended up getting deferred because I wanted the whole thing over behind me. I wanted no part of any of it. I said, I'll do my community service. I won't commit this crime again.
Jordan, on the other hand, pled guilty to theft. He received a suspended jail sentence. And, you'll never believe this, more community service. But Jessica says Jordan Joplin refused to go quietly into the night.
Jordan's not very nice when he's angry. His text messages and all of that stuff.
And what are those messages saying that you're getting?
At one point it was, if I can't have you, nobody can. And he started threatening my family.
Jessica took action to get Jordan Joplin out of her life.
I get a restraining order against him.
Joplin disputed Jessica's claim in court papers, saying he'd moved on with his life and had a new girlfriend. What happened after you got the restraining order?
He stopped.
But some speak in glowing terms about the Joplin they knew.
I never expected somebody like that to be in my life, you know.
Crescenta Lawrence had hit rock bottom in 2012, she says, before Joplin's attentions pulled her out of a hellish spiral.
Jordan made certain to be there, helped me with the bills when I didn't even ask for it. He babysit the kids so I could go to the hospital. He was an angel. I was just happy to be a piece of furniture in his life. He radiated such energy about him that anybody would want to be around him.
And anybody occasionally meant just about everybody.
He'd have 2-3 girlfriends at the same time, as a matter of fact, in the same truck, showing up at my house. One of the girls, she goes, I don't know what it is, but I can't seem to stay away from him. Later, I had a few connections that I got him into the adult industry. He was a dancer for a while, and then he became a model and an adult entertainer. He was doing movies.
My name's Logan. Here to see the house. So may I have online? Yes, sir.
Jordan Joplin worked in adult films under the stage name Logan Cruz. Remember, that's the name he used when he made that welfare check call for Dr. Garcia.
My name's Logan. What's your last name? Oh, my real name is Jordan Joplin, but everybody calls me Logan.
So just how did Logan Cruz from Washington State come to cross paths with a surgeon from Alaska?
That was the big question, was the police described him as a close friend, so what is that relationship?
In life, Eric Garcia was able to closely guard his privacy. With his sudden death, that control was gone. As questions are answered, secrets are revealed. Did keeping those secrets cost Dr. Eric Garcia his life? The home of Dr. Eric Garcia in Ketchikan, Alaska, had become a crime scene. But was it just the latest location for the alleged deceit and deceptions of Jordan Joplin? His friends back in Washington State knew Joplin could be a smooth-talking playa, an occasional bad boy, but Dr. Eric Garcia's focus had been on medicine, and that always left little room for any kind of well-rounded life away from the hospital.
I know that he dated when he was young, and mostly I know this from my sister, because my sister actually got more into his business than I did. So I think I left those topics alone.
According to his family, they were left to wonder if Dr. Garcia's lack of experience in dating might have made him easy prey for the alleged manipulations of a Jordan Joplin, especially after a life-changing operation in Seattle kind of opened up a chasm inside the surgeon who had always put his work first. You talked about how you felt this triple bypass was kind of a turning point in his life.
Well, I mean, he kind of fell into a little bit of a depression right after it, which is not uncommon from having cardiac surgery. And he reevaluated his life, and he started also thinking, well, maybe it's time for me to enjoy my life some more.
It was around that time that Joplin was working as a massage therapist in Washington State. Joplin would say Garcia paid $500 the first time he gave him a massage, and that's how their relationship began. Why do you think he didn't want to talk to people about his relationship with him?
I just think that certain people have a really hard time accepting who they are.
In Ketchikan, with his many patients, the decisions of Dr. Eric Garcia saved lives. With Jordan Joplin, did Eric Garcia's decisions cost the doctor his own life? To all but his closest friends, he never shared intimate details of his private life, not in Alaska and not in his family. Do you think there were aspects of his private life that he thought would be difficult to share with your family?
Yes. I personally suspect that, so I never really questioned him, but certainly it would have been something hard to discuss with my mom or my dad.
Yet among those in Washington who knew Joplin, Eric Garcia was no secret. Amanda Polreich was a close friend of Joplin's. When cops got a tip she had important information about him, they tracked her down in Washington State.
Well, I knew that he was his sugar daddy.
That the doctor was Jordan's sugar daddy?
He would send money, he would ship him things, whatever Jordan wanted, Jordan pretty much got, honestly.
There is.
Inside Garcia's home, police find a letter he received from Joplin.
Friendship related? I think it's more friendship.
I love you, and I hope you never forget that. The letter from Joplin to Dr. Garcia began, ending with the words, "Love always, Jordan." In the search of Joplin's home in Washington, a card he had received from Eric Garcia with a darkly ironic message.
We located a Valentine's Day card. It was dated February 14, 2017, addressed to Jordan from Eric. I paraphrase what I read in that. You are my first and only love. Not kidding, you will probably kill me, but know I let you down.
Your brother was Dr. Eric Garcia. He showed great judgment every time he entered an operating room or spoke to a patient. Why did he remain in Joplin's life?
Well, in these types of domestic types of relationship, these things happen where people control somebody else.
As they seek to link Joplin to the morphine, cops are also working to connect Joplin to a detail found in the toxicology report. Remember, Dr. Garcia's elevated levels of carbon monoxide, all that odd barbecue evidence. And that raised the question, was the entire scenario with the charcoal grill staged by Joplin to make it look like Dr. Garcia killed himself via inhaling carbon monoxide from the smoke from the barbecue? And did Joplin remove those smoke detectors to prevent them from going off and alerting authorities?
Cops, back to that video of Joplin from Walmart where they knew he bought all those packing crates. Well, the evidence also showed that's not all he bought.
He also bought a bag of charcoal. It was the one other thing other than all these plastic bins that Jordan Joplin purchased that day at Walmart.
There it is. It's listed right on that receipt. So was this Jordan Joplin gathering the elements he needed to make it appear as if a depressed Dr. Garcia wanted to end it all? Then, one more shocking piece of evidence that's found on Jordan Joplin's iPhone. It's evidence that might just seal his fate. In Ketchikan, Alaska, Jordan Joplin sits in jail on a theft charge as authorities are seeking to tie him to the murder of Dr. Eric Garcia.
The results of the autopsy in this case couldn't say whether Dr. Garcia had purposely ingested this morphine or whether someone had given it to him. They could only say what the cause of death was.
There was still the question out there is, where did the morphine come from?
Everything's starting to come together as police learn about that friend of Joplin's, Amanda Polreich. Polreich tells police that she had gotten morphine from a friend whose spouse had been prescribed the medication, and that Joplin had asked her just how much morphine would be fatal.
He was like, if I wanted to be able to just, off myself one day, how much do you think I would need?
Like, how much would it take to either, get high on it or slip away?
Mm-hmm.
When did that conversation happen before the doctor was killed?
I gave it to him way before, months probably.
What Ms. Polreich was able to do was show that Mr. Joplin was the one who procured the morphine to eventually kill Dr. Garcia.
Was there any discussion on how he used the liquid morphine on the doctor?
Nope. He never mentioned anything about what he was doing at all.
Here's the police theory. Joplin gave Garcia that fatal dose of morphine during his March 2017 visit. Then, Joplin left the state and then called in the welfare check so that he would have the perfect alibi.
So Mr. Joplin was charged with murder in the first degree and also theft in the first degree.
Joplin pleads not guilty to all charges.
For a city like Ketchikan, this was just an unheard of crime. So it really kind of infiltrated the entire community. Everyone was talking about it.
So much so that the case was actually moved from being tried in Ketchikan to being tried in Anchorage.
I tried in my opening statement to present this clear picture of why Mr. Joplin is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of all of his charges.
The prosecution methodically lays out before the jury a timeline of what they say is Joplin's involvement in the case. And they bring Amanda Polreich to the stand to put the morphine in his hands before Dr. Garcia's death. They put police on the stand to testify about their investigation.
The fact that when Mr. Joplin called in the fake welfare check, he told them to call Dr. Garcia's cell phone. That he had that cell phone with him in Washington in a Faraday bag was also particularly damning evidence.
But nothing in this case is more stunning than the disturbing video clip obtained by police from Joplin's phone that prosecutors play in court.
On March 17th, 2017, the defendant, Jordan Joplin, took out his cell phone and he took a video of Dr. Eric Garcia unconscious, gasping for air, and close to death. 10 days later, on March 27th, 2017, Ketchikan police officers found Dr. Garcia dead, in the same position as in the video, wearing the same clothes as he did in the video.
Yet in Joplin's video, there's no charcoal visible on Dr. Garcia's hands, showing, prosecutors say in their summation, all the barbecue stuff happened afterwards, after that fatal dose of morphine.
When it's the defense team's turn, Joplin's attorney says that the prosecution's case is entirely circumstantial and that Dr. Garcia himself administered the morphine that took his life. And as for that video, well, the defense acknowledges that Joplin may not have reacted appropriately, claiming it was out of fear for Dr. Garcia's job, but it doesn't mean he's guilty.
The defense calls Jordan Joplin.
To testify in his own defense, Jordan Joplin takes the stand.
Did you know Dr. Eric Garcia?
Yes, I did.
Did you love him?
Yes.
He characterized it as a romantic relationship.
He's very kind, emotionally supportive.
He offered a number of alternatives for what he said was happening.
And the shipping containers with his belongings? Well, Joplin tells the jury that Dr. Garcia was planning on retiring and moving to Washington.
He was giving me a bunch of stuff, and then also I was under the impression that he either bought a house or was in the process of buying a house. And he was supposed to retire in the spring of 2017.
Prosecutors later say there is no evidence other than Joplin's own word to suggest that Dr. Garcia ever planned on retiring and moving to Washington. Choosing to testify on his own behalf leaves Joplin wide open for cross-examination.
Mr. Joplin, you started to plan killing Dr. Garcia much before March of 2017, right?
I didn't try or kill or plan to kill anybody.
What really stood out was the different stories throughout even his own testimony. You didn't try to wake him up at any point.
I did.
Okay, so that's new today too. When did you do that?
Either sometime on the 17th. I didn't shake him really hard because I wasn't trying to startle him. But he seemed to be sleeping hard, so I just left him alone.
On the 14th day of this emotional trial, the defense rests.
So after we finish closing arguments, then the case goes to the jury, and ultimately the case is in their hands.
Also in the jury's hands, the fate of Jordan Joplin.
You just don't know what a jury's going to do. It's excruciating to not know what's going to happen.
Seven years after Dr. Eric Garcia's death, testimony in the murder trial of Jordan Joplin is over. Then, on day 3 of deliberation, jurors say they've reached a verdict.
I think the most excruciating part is when the jury has come in and we're just waiting for the words to be said.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Jordan Joplin, guilty of murder in the first degree.
Guilty of all charges. He was found guilty of murder in the first degree and theft in the first degree.
The second we got the guilty verdict, I was amazed, but elation. I was so excited that this can't happen again to another person.
On April 9th, 2024, Jordan Joplin was brought back here to Ketchikan for sentencing. Eric Garcia's brother Saul made the roughly 6-hour flight from LA to Ketchikan, plus that ferry from the airport, just so he could deliver a victim impact statement. In your address to the court, you spoke directly to Joplin. What did you want him to hear from your mouth?
So essentially that the one person that cared for you and you just essentially gambled your life away. I mean, because you thought you could get away with it.
The court preferred the victim statements to go first and then the state's argument? Or?
Yes, please. Just state your full name for the record. I'll be glad to hear from you.
Our hope is that the court gives the strongest consideration possible to all victims' statements today and arrives at the maximum sentence possible for Joplin.
This was intentional, significantly premeditated, brazen, craven conduct, and it calls for a significant sentence. For murder in the first degree, the sentence will be 99 years with none suspended.
I feel like justice was served. Jordan got 99 years in prison. Alaska does not allow the death penalty, so that's about the maximum that you can get.
I was pleased. It's not because I have this vengeance in my heart that he wants to pay. I don't see it that way. I was very glad that this is not going to happen to anybody else.
In Ketchikan, the love and affection for Dr. Garcia lives on in so many ways. We heard from everyone in Ketchikan how they like to remember your brother, Dr. Eric Garcia. How would you like us to remember him?
I think Eric's legacy is about compassion and caring, but he helped so many people along the way with medicine or just being friends with people and connecting with them.
At the hospital where he worked, a memorial tree planted during a beautiful ceremony, a lasting tribute to someone who was once an outsider, but was embraced by the townsfolk here as one of their own.
Part of the ceremony was everybody would pick a stone that would remind him of Eric. Love, happiness, friendliness. One by one, everybody would lay a stone in a circular fashion around the tree. Now you can see how big the tree is 7 years later.
The tree blooms every year, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to commemorate a beautiful man.
And we should point out tonight that Jordan Joplin has now filed an appeal of his conviction.
David, if his appeal is denied, the earliest he'll be eligible for parole is in the year 2050 when he'll be 64. That's our program for tonight, and here's to a great new season of 2020. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. Incredible stories coming your way. This is just the start. From all of us at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
My husband come flying around the corner in our car, and I just said, "Is she dead?" And he said, "Yeah."
This is a grandmother who's been shot in a car park of the block of flats where she lives. If you were to put a list of places where somebody could be shot in the head, postpartum wouldn't register.
We were catapulted into a world that we had no idea on. We weren't from any kind of criminal background.
Who's done this? What's their motive for doing this? Is there any other risk to the wider public? Contact mate.
He knew what was going to happen, he helped what was going to happen, and he helped cover up what had happened.
This case was about a carefully planned, cold-blooded murder. It was also about brutal betrayal between old friends.
In the heart of Northamptonshire, on the banks of the River Nene, lies the ancient and thriving village of Earlsbarton.
Earlsbarton is an incredibly busy village, a lively village, full of people, generations, family.
Nice village. It's been a nice village for years, and it's always been a community village, so everyone gets involved with everything, and most people know most people.
It's kind of tucked away from nowhere. You'd never find it unless you stumbled across it, but it's a real gem, I think, of the county.
So you've got your doctors, your chemists, the schools, the butchers, the bakers, pretty much the candlestick makers.
I can honestly say Earlsbarton is the best place I've ever lived and worked in. It's a place where people genuinely love each other, they genuinely care about each other. It's a place where community comes very naturally to the people here.
And it's this close-knit, safe community that attracted Marion Price and her family to set up home.
My mum was originally from Liverpool. She moved down with one of her other sisters and ended up meeting my dad, falling in love and getting married.
With 2 children to care for, Marion juggled home life with work as a bursar at the local nursery school.
My mum was always cleaning when we were younger. That's all I ever remember. She'd got the Motown on, or just any kind of music, and she'd be cleaning and washing the windows every Saturday. Just always singing and dancing and just happy, really, yeah.
Yeah, she's one of those people. She loved working with the children. She loved the colleagues she worked with. She was always looking to make people smile, looking to make people happy. If someone was down, she would always try and help them and cheer them up. And she was just a lovely person to be around.
And family was everything to Marion.
Marion Price was a loving grandmother, mother, daughter, sister. She was a family woman. She was bubbly. She had a big family support around her.
We were always getting together, barbecues, Christmases, Easter. You know, it was a very big family.
When their children were older, Marion and her husband separated, but remained the closest of friends.
I was about 21 when Mum and Dad divorced. You know, they were separated on good terms.
In their divorce settlement, basically my mum kept the house and my dad kept the land on the side, and he eventually built the house and ended up living next door to my mum for quite a while. So yeah, it was very amicable between my mum and my dad.
Despite having her family around her, as the years passed, Marion felt something was missing.
So when my mum and dad parted ways, she was a bit of a lost soul for a while. And, she was sort of missing that family setup.
She was looking to spend her days with somebody, go on holiday with somebody, sort of grow old with somebody that she could have fun with, which I think, that's all anybody wants, isn't it? Like to either be looked after or just have a companion. I mean, she's got her friends and obviously us, but you go home on your own at the end of the day, don't you?
So I suggested online dating. She went on a few dates and then she met Michael.
To everyone's surprise, Marion's relationship with Michael moved fast.
It was a bit of a whirlwind romance. They were very quickly engaged and very quickly married.
And she was just like, no, I'm certain. She was, he makes me laugh, he's funny, and she was happy.
After a few years married, the relationship ran its course, and the couple separated. And by December 2019, Marion was excitedly making plans to spend Christmas with son Gary.
So I was speaking to my mum a lot on the phone, and she was just really excited to come down for Christmas and see our brand new house, really.
But 10 days before Christmas, life for everyone was to change forever.
Got a phone call off my friend who lives in the same block of flats as my mum. She said, that your mum's car windows are smashed in. And then she'd gone back outside to look into the car and then saw my mum. She said, your mum's unconscious, I think you need to get round here.
I was at home, off work, and my partner was working, but he came home about 4 o'clock, and so we were just having a couple of drinks, celebrating a few days off together, and I think it was about 8 o'clock, I got a phone call from my sister, and she was crying, and my face immediately dropped, and I was like, what's wrong? And she told me that Mum's been attacked.
Tony's husband, Scott, immediately dashed to the scene to check on Marion.
My husband come flying around the corner in our car, and then he said, get in the car. He started driving to the hospital, and I just said, is she dead? And he said, yeah.
And I remember just falling to the floor and screaming, and the rest of that evening's a complete blur, if I'm honest. It was just, you go from complete elation, having a good Sunday evening, to your whole world just crumbling.
I was on call this weekend. It was a Sunday night. I remember it really well, actually. It was about sort of 8 o'clock time. The first call was just, right, we've got a lady in a car in a quiet little village outside a block of flats. Windows have all been put in, and we think she's got a significant head injury. So I got in the car and I drove to the scene immediately, really. I knew it was one that I'd have to go to.
On arrival in Earls Barton, the true horror of the scene before him unfolded.
Driving to the States, Christmas lights up everywhere. The victim's car, Marion's car, with the windows smashed. The scenes of crime manager has seen Marion and assessed the scene. He said to me, "This looks like a firearms discharge."
Police immediately launch a murder investigation.
Ellis Barton is one of the last places in Northamptonshire that you'd imagine something like this happening. If you were to put a list of places where somebody could be shot in the head, Ellis Barton wouldn't register.
In the quaint village of Earls Barton, Northamptonshire police have just launched a murder investigation after 63-year-old grandmother Marion Price was found dead in her car.
It was confirmed by our family liaison officer that she died from a single shotgun wound to the head through her car door. I mean, she hadn't even taken her seatbelt off, and she was shot through the window.
The majority of the murders we deal with most recently have been knife-related, knife crime or drunken incidents that are just accidents that have happened and have ended in tragedy. This was somebody's actually shot her through the window of her car. It was extraordinary. She just isn't the type of victim that you'd expect a gun crime incident to have occurred for.
She had no enemies, you know. It was just a far cry from the world that we're all from. You know, I mean, we don't know anyone with guns, we don't know criminals of that level. Like, it was all too much to take in. It was horrendous.
This is a grandmother who's been shot in a car park of the block of flats where she lives. Who's done this? What's their motive for doing this? Is there any other risk to the wider public?
Immediately, police seal off the village, sending shockwaves throughout the community.
So lots of residents in the area woke up on Monday morning to see police tape everywhere, people in white forensic suits, and the first thought was, what on earth has happened here?
It's just unbelievable that gradually the village wakes up to a scenario that nobody can quite believe has really happened, especially when it's somebody you've been familiar with.
The community started to learn the nature of what happened to Marion. It came as a huge shock because of the intensity of the violence of the crime.
There was a little bit of fear that someone's going round, someone's shooting somebody in a residential area that's quiet. How has this happened?
Forensic officers scour the scene, desperate for clues as to who could have carried out this atrocious crime.
He just parked her car, literally turned it off, as someone shot her in the head at point-blank range. You think that means somebody's had to have been there before her, had to have been hiding in the dark, because we narrowed it down eventually to about 5 o'clock. It probably happened, but it's 5 o'clock in the middle of December, very cold, very sort of damp that evening, and you think somebody's laid in wait for her. And you think, who's going to have done that?
The evidence from the forensic scientists showed that Marion had been shot by somebody effectively standing at the door of her car. It also showed that prior to being shot, she had put up her hand to try and protect her head. Completely futile, tragically, in the circumstances, because there was injuries to the hand which showed that to be the case.
Police established that on the morning of the 15th of December, Marion had visited her sister to get her hair done. From there, she did some grocery shopping for her mum, dropped that at her house before arriving back at her flat around 5 p.m. She was shot dead before she'd even had a chance to take off her seatbelt. One theory is immediately ruled out.
It was obvious from the outset that this wasn't some robbery, because her handbag and its contents were still in the passenger front footwell.
With no murder weapon at the scene, police have to consider something even more terrifying.
You've got almost what looks to be almost like a gangland-style execution that's happened in the middle of this little village.
I think our initial thoughts were it could be a contract killing, because we didn't know anyone else that would have anything to do with something like that.
With the shooting showing all the hallmarks of a professional hit, police need to establish if Marion was the target, or was it a case of mistaken identity? So delve deeper into life with her second husband, Michael Reeder.
Can't really pinpoint the time that she started to change, but it was definitely not long after they got married. I would say probably within the year, she started to look tired. She wasn't putting makeup on.
It seemed like he was charming all the right people. He was doing lovely things for my sister's kids. He was going golfing with my brother-in-law. He was nice and pleasant to the people he needed to be at the time, but I would see different traits in my mum that just wasn't my mum. She'd lost her spark.
I could see she wasn't happy, but I think she didn't want to be seen as a failure. Like, you know, I married him really quick, people didn't approve, you know, they're going to say I told you so. So she tried to stick it out.
In 2017, Marion and Michael split up.
When my mum left him, she called me straight away and said I've left Mike. And it was like this weight was just lifted off my shoulder. She was like, this is the next chapter of my life now. Like, I'm going to enjoy it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And yeah, she was just really excited about what was to come.
And in November 2019, the couple decided to make their separation official.
They were divorced, and just a month before that Marion was shot, he'd been ordered to pay her £10,000 at a court hearing.
After the court, the next few days, he was due to pay that £10,000 into my mum's bank on the 16th of December.
But the day before the money was due to be paid, Marion's life was cruelly taken from her. Something police believe is no coincidence.
I suspected instantly that the person who has had to pay her money in an acrimonious divorce battle has a motive. And he's a very good suspect. So I'd sent some uniformed resources. They were firearms officers that went round to arrest him.
Contact made at the front with Mr. Reader. Yeah, he's just putting his dog indoors. You're right. Right, let's go a bit, Mr. Reader. Pop your lolly down somewhere for my friend. I need to have a chat with you.
He opened the door, still holding an ice cream in his hand, when officers said that his ex-wife had been found dead.
At this moment in time, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder of your ex-partner. You do not have to say anything, ma'am. Your defence do not mention when questioned something straight line of court. You do say it may be given evidence. Your arrest is necessary for a prompt investigation into that offence and to secure evidence. Do you understand that? Put your hands on that for me.
You want your own in the house?
When we've heard that he'd been arrested, we all were relieved. So it was a big, huge sigh of relief that he'd been arrested.
Just waiting for another car to come, and you're going to be taken to Criminal Justice Centre. All right? Where you'll be spoken to further about this incident. All right.
Fill me in, what's
you're under caution, sir. I'll just remind you, you do not have to say anything, mainly defence, you do not mention when questioned something straight line of court, and you do say maybe evidence. All right?
Have a seat. When did this happen?
Early this evening, sir. Have a seat. Your ex-partner is Marion Price. Yeah.
You know, who else would have wanted to hurt my mum? Nobody. Absolutely nobody.
Michael Reader is taken in for questioning, but having found no murder weapon at the scene or at Michael's home, the police have little to link him to the crime scene and need to establish if he pulled the trigger or ordered the hit on Marion.
Very pressured environment because we've got an initial 24 hours, then we can ask a superintendent internally for another 12. We didn't have any sort of fingerprints or anything like that on the car at the time that we could tie him to. We didn't get anything back from our fast-track submissions to the forensic lab, so we couldn't forensically initially put him there at the crime scene. We just were left with, he's done this. He's got to have done this.
But police have no concrete evidence tying Reader to the murder. Time is running out to keep him in custody, and police searching his home have found nothing of interest.
Couldn't find a mobile phone for him, which is unusual. I know he was sort of late 60s at the time, but everyone has a mobile phone.
They looked at his bank accounts, and his bank account revealed a direct debit to a mobile phone company. The police don't need the handset in order to get the information they need from a mobile phone. They need the data from that phone, and that can be obtained through the phone company.
Information from Michael Reader's mobile phone data soon turned the investigation on its head.
So we get this call data. He's got a monthly contract phone. This is the number of it, and these are all the people he's called. And his top contact is somebody called Stephen Welch. And he's in contact with this guy all the time. Literally, it's 90% of his calls are backwards and forwards Stephen Welch. So you're thinking, right, Stephen Welch is somebody who's of definite interest to us.
So who is Stephen Welch? And what is his link to Michael Reader? And what does he know about the brutal killing of Marion?
Michael Reader's best friend was a man named Stephen Welch. They'd known each other for decades. They played snooker 7 days a week. They even went round and had sort of family parties together. They were almost like brothers.
Reader and Welsh went back years. I recall that, as far as Stephen was concerned, they'd met when they were probably in their 20s. So they'd known each other for about 40 years. And they'd met in the local motor trade. It was almost as if he was attracted to Reader like a moth to a flame. He looked on Reader really as an older brother. Reader was about 10 years older. Reader had the nice house, the E-type Jag, the snooker table. Stephen didn't really have anybody.
So I sent some cops down a couple of days in to go and speak to Stephen Welch. Find out, is he a suspect? Is he a witness? What do you know about Michael Reader? What do you know about where he was? After persistent knocking, his flatmate answered. Flatmate sort of like, I dropped him off the airport.
Welch's flatmate reveals he flew to Alicante just hours after Marion was shot dead. Immediately, police get a warrant to search his address. And finally, there's a breakthrough.
We found a phone that turned out to be Michael Reader's phone on his bedside cabinet. And we found a tracking device inside the glove box of his car.
They could then establish in the course of their investigation that the tracking device, which has a SIM card, just like a mobile phone, had been placed on Marion's car. He had been tracking his ex-wife the course of the past year.
In Northampton, officers investigating the shooting of grandmother Marion Price have arrested 70-year-old Michael Reader on suspicion of murder.
On the rest of you on suspicion of murder. What?
But now they have another man in their sights, his friend Stephen Welch, who appears to have fled to Spain on the night of the murder.
So he's raised to suspect status because I think that this is somebody that's helped Michael Reader do this because of the calls, backwards and forwards, and calls on the day of the offence, the days leading up to offence. They're in constant contact. So I thought, right, Michael Reader has done this. He needed some help. This is the man that's helped him.
When we found out there was a second suspect, it just opened up so many other questions as to why that person would want to be involved. Why has he been drawn into this horrendous plan?
But while searching 61-year-old Welch's home, not only have police found Reader's mobile phone, they've discovered a tracking device, which very quickly reveals some startling information.
What we started to understand is that Michael Reader's phone was in contact with a tracking device for a period of about a year. Marion's car and the tracking device are in the same places at the same time, so we know the tracking device has been in the vicinity of Elsbarn, where she lives.
The discovery of the tracker device in Stephen Welsh's car and the linking of that tracker device to Michael Reader's phone showed that this was a man who was obsessed with where his ex-wife was and what she was doing. It is not a normal in the aftermath of even the most antagonistic of divorces for an ex-husband to put a tracker device on his ex-wife's car. But he did.
Whenever Michael Reader wanted to work out where Marion was, he would send a text or call the number that was effectively on this tracker, and he'd be sent a location, and he could then map out where she was at what time of day.
I mean, when you find out someone's been tracking your mum, it's just another level of disgust. Like, you just can't believe or understand why someone would want to do that. Just sickening, absolutely sickening that he'd been stalking my mum for so long. And just devastated, absolutely heartbroken that my mum was even involved in a situation like this. Like, it shouldn't have happened.
Police still need to establish what Welch's involvement might have been. And analysing the tracker and the GPS phone data of both men proves enlightening. Every 5 to 7 days, the tracker sent a text message to Michael Reader's phone, telling him the battery was low.
And we could prove that mostly Welch's car was going from Northampton to Elsbarn very regularly.
there was a perfectly sensible inference to be drawn that these various trips between Northampton and Earls Barton were for the sole purpose of charging the tracker.
In custody, police questioned Reader about their findings.
Reader didn't give away much. He predominantly answered no comment, and just made it clear that he didn't kill his wife, and then refused to answer questions. He made us do all the work.
I suspect he thought that simply getting rid of the handset would be enough to get rid of the evidence trail that ultimately led to him. He was very wrong about that, and he completely failed to understand that all the police needed was in fact to access the data, and you don't always need the handset itself in order to do that.
Police might believe that Michael was tracking Marion for a year, but that didn't prove he had fired the gun which killed her. A gun which they still hadn't found.
Any case, such as this, where somebody is killed with either a knife or a gun, the first thing that you will want is the murder weapon. And the first thing you will want to tell a jury about is the murder weapon, and whether there are fingerprints or DNA in it. We had no such thing.
It's like a bit of a needle in a haystack. We knew we were after a shotgun, but we couldn't tell how long the barrel was. We didn't know what we were looking for, other than it was a shotgun of some type.
So in most murder cases, you'd imagine that somebody might find a weapon, somebody might find bullets, and police put huge resources into that. They used big manpower. They searched the River Nen. They searched houses. They searched areas where they knew that Reader and Welch had been to, but they were never able to find it.
Despite having found no weapon, police do receive some interesting information.
There was a witness who had seen a man on a motorbike at a point that was looking up to where we knew Marion was visiting her mother for some 50 minutes.
We had an eyewitness that said there's a bloke there on a motorbike, and I saw him. He was standing there for half an hour playing on his phone.
Who was this man? Was it Michael Reader? Or Stephen Welch? Police believe whoever it was removed the tracker from Marion's car while she was visiting her mother, then followed her back to her own home on the motorbike.
He sat there on his motorbike waiting for her. He followed her back to the house, and he shot her in cold blood through the window before she'd even had a chance to take her seatbelt off.
Convinced Marion's ex-husband was involved in some capacity, police charge Michael Reader with her murder. But their second suspect, Stephen Welch, is still in Spain, although it appears he is keeping a close eye on events back in the UK.
The police could see from Stephen Welsh's phone he had been Googling as to what had happened.
And on 20th of December 2019, Stephen Welch gets a big surprise.
So we had a reception committee waiting for him as he came off the plane. He came back and we arrested him.
Welsh admitted he'd been ferrying the tracker backwards and forwards, and he admitted in evidence, I was complicit with a long-term stalking operation. I'm disgusted and ashamed of myself and everything.
News is made public that there is now not one, but two men charged with the murder of Marion Price.
It's just scary to think about how planned it was, and the potential for it to be thought through enough for two people to be involved, and that someone else might know about it and haven't been able to have intervened and not. It's just scary, I suppose, to think about.
We were shocked when we found out that there was a second person involved, really shocked. We were just like, it's crazy enough that one person would want to do it, let alone an accomplice who has no reason towards my mum.
But with both men denying their involvement, police have their work cut out to build a case for trial.
Seeing Reader in court for the first time, I remember heart racing, just pounding. I just felt sick when he walked in the room, but I just didn't want to show any emotion at all.
As the trial begins at Northampton Crown Court, the prosecution needs to lay out its case as to who pulled the trigger. And it very quickly becomes clear that one man has an ace up his sleeve.
In the first few days of the trial, Stephen Welch and Michael Reader sat in the dock together. They had the occasional chat. They were best friends after all. But it soon became apparent that actually it started to dawn on Stephen Welch that Michael Reader had really landed him in it big time. Within a few days of the trial starting, an extra dock officer was placed between them and the dock.
Stephen Welsh had known that Rita had his ex-wife under surveillance. He did admit that he was playing a role in that. But at no time did Stephen Welsh accept that he'd known what was about to happen or what had happened.
As the trial unfolds, stories emerge revealing the truth behind Marion Price and Rita's relationship.
Listening to the court case, there was a lot of things that came out that we didn't know. That was upsetting and shocking. He'd hit her a couple of times and that he threatened to kill her a few times.
Marion initially dismissed her children's concerns that something was wrong. But as the years passed, things went from bad to worse.
She never told me or my brother the full story. Mum and Mike were due to come over my house for Christmas dinner, and for some reason he didn't come over. And then when she'd gone home, he'd taken all the Christmas decorations down.
I had got some tickets for my mum for Jersey Boys. At the end of the musical, the whole audience gets up to dance, and mum loves to dance, loves to sing, and he didn't like it. So he stormed out of the auditorium, left her in London. He'd just gone back to Northampton on the train.
In 2017, Marion left Michael Reader. Unbeknown to her children, she continued to give Reader £54,000 when he demanded money, until she put her foot down and refused in May 2017. Something which sparked a violent rage in Reader.
So he come round and he threatened her, and she said, I haven't got it, you can't have it. He said, well then you're going to have to sell your house. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And with that, he's pulled out a mallet of some type and hit her over the head several times.
Marion was taken to hospital, where she had stitches for a head wound and treatment for a broken finger. Reader was arrested and charged with grievous bodily harm.
It went to court, went to trial, and apparently, the jury come to the conclusion that he hadn't done it. They went with him instead of my mum. And I feel like she was failed then. Sorry.
He managed to convince a jury on the first occasion that went in front of court that it was an accident, that he'd tried to push her away and she banged her head on a doorpost, and that's she broke her head and fingers. He'd managed to convince people that he hadn't done something, and he got away with it.
But having been cleared of attacking Marion in the past, he now stands accused of her murder.
Reader, on day one in court, day one of him giving evidence, he walked in and he thought he'd charmed the jury into believing his side of the story. That somebody else did it, it was nothing to do with him.
He was so confident that he could get away with it, that he thought he'd planned the perfect murder.
Having convinced a jury of his innocence once before, could Michael Reader once again walk away an innocent man? At Northampton Crown Court, Michael Reader and his best friend Stephen Welch are standing trial for the murder of Reader's ex-wife, Marion Price.
We never found the motorbike. We never found the firearm. They planned this really well.
From the outset, my concern was that Reader had not only planned to kill his wife, and he planned to get away with it, but he'd planned a fall guy by using Stephen Welsh as that fall guy.
The court hears how in November 2018, Michael Reader bought a tracking device and burner phone in order to start keeping tabs on Marion, something which the prosecution believe turned into a bigger plan.
What started off as stalking her to understand who she was with and where she was and whether she had a boyfriend and what she was doing with her money to help him with his divorce turned into the ideal method of tracking her so that he could kill her eventually.
And after being ordered to pay Marion £10,000 in a divorce settlement, Reader snapped.
When she came in and told me about it, and she was, upbeat, she was pleased that it had all gone through and it was done. But there was just a niggle, there was just something that made me think that it wasn't all over.
Reader was full of hate. He couldn't get his head around why Marion would leave him. He couldn't live with the fact that she'd left him, walked away, carried on with her life, had a family that loved her. He wanted to take that away from her. It was just jealousy, it was coercive control, and it was just him trying to have the final say on what happened with her life.
The court hears how on 15th of December 2019, Marion visited her sister to get her hair done before going shopping. She then drove her silver Corsa back to Earls Barton to her mother's house, where she unloaded shopping between 4:15 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. It is here the prosecution claims the tracker was removed from her car. Marion was followed home and shot dead through her window, before she'd even taken off her seatbelt. But who actually pulled the trigger?
Reader's defence was he had nothing to do with the murder. He accepted he was sort of directing what he referred to as a surveillance operation on his ex-wife, using Stephen to do that. What he didn't accept was ever travelling to Earls Barton himself. His insinuation was that whilst they both knew there was a surveillance operation going on, it would have been Stephen Welsh that took it one step further, outside Reader's knowledge.
But the prosecution argues differently.
We believed, knowing all that we did, that Michael Reader would have wanted his ex-wife to see that it was him who was about to shoot her.
And they present the evidence they believe proves it.
This is where the Google data, the GPS data, came into play, was in relation to Stephen Welsh, because that showed not only had he waited patiently at Michael Reader's home address whilst Michael Reader's phone went off to Earls Barton and was located in the car park behind Marion's flat at the time that she was shot, but also, as soon as that was done, we saw Stephen Welsh's phone move from his address to meet the phone of Michael Reader in what turned out to be a garage slightly north of where Marion was living.
The jury is told that after executing Marion in cold blood, Reader once again turned to his trusted friend Stephen Welch, calling him to meet him at a nearby garage to dispose of the evidence.
He said that Michael Reader gave him his coat and asked him to get rid of it. He drove up to a reservoir in order to get rid of it.
There was evidence that demonstrated that Welsh had travelled up to something called, I think it's Pittsford Lakes, and then down to the River Nene in the hour or so after the shooting, in order to dispose of paraphernalia connected with the murder.
Stephen Welch tried to say that he was simply a man doing a friend a favour. He said he had no idea what had happened, yet he had been asked to dispose of clothes without asking any questions. He'd been asked to meet Michael Reader at quite a rural location without asking any questions. He flew to Alicante the next morning. He saw stories online about Marion's death, and he asked no questions. Who does that?
The court hears that following this discovery, police searched the river.
We found a bag with some clothing, a rucksack that had been thrown into the river there that became quite crucial to trial.
And despite Reader's insistence otherwise, the prosecution is adamant he was the one who pulled the trigger.
Whereas the prosecution case against Reader was he was the shooter, the case against Welsh was he was not the shooter. He was involved in what we call a joint enterprise. In other words, he was actively involved in the planning and assisting of the murder.
Having both denied their part in the murder, on 30th of November 2020, the jury retires to consider its verdict. Would Michael Reader once again walk away a free man?
Once the jury went out to deliberate on their verdicts, we really were as confident as we could be, even though it can always go wrong with a jury. And I have done a number of cases over the years in which a jury has come back with a verdict that was not expected.
After 3 days of deliberating, the jury returns its verdict. Stephen Welch is found guilty of murder. Michael Reader is found guilty of murder.
So we sat there in the court and they said guilty, and I just looked down and just started crying. Relief, we've got justice for my mum.
You don't feel like there's anything to celebrate when the verdict comes in. It's very sad all round. We've lost our mum. Their families have lost someone in their family to prison. And there's just no one wins in that situation. No one comes out any the better.
On 21st of December 2020, just over a year after the brutal murder, Michael Reeder is sentenced to life, with a minimum term of 31 years. Stephen Welch is jailed for a minimum of 27 years.
We were pleased with the sentencing, and the judge's sentencing remarks were great. She knew what they'd done. She sentenced them accordingly. It sends a message that this behaviour, that in this county you're not going to get away with that sort of thing. I'm sure that will be something the family will take heart in. Not from a vindictive point of view, from a point of view that he won't do anyone else any harm.
I think that Michael Reeder was motivated by loss of control. He lost control of Marion. She had the audacity to leave him.
Despite the sentences, the pain of losing their mum is something Marion's family will live with forever.
The way I feel now is a bit empty, lost, but, you know, we're getting there. Living life for her. Just, we're not going to let it break us, or, you know, we're going to be happy, and I still sing around the kitchen and clean. Not as much as she cleans, but, you know, I'm trying. And we're getting together and we're making memories with the boys, and we just talk about her all the time.
When I think about my mum and our memories, they're always happy memories. They're always filled with a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, just having a good time. My memories are of very happy times, and that's something that can't be taken away.
This program is rated 14+ and contains scenes of violence and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
At about 9:35 p.m., we received a radio call. A child was believed to have been abducted. It ended badly.
This person, this phantom, has come and taken a child and done something horrific to them. And we don't know who they are.
You would have some very good leads.
This guy is a good suspect.
He lived in the neighborhood. They knew the family.
We got his DNA. That was submitted to the forensic science people.
They had criminal records of sexual assault and kidnapping.
And the results didn't come back. There was no match. We eliminated at least 50 to 60 people by DNA. It was dead end after dead end after dead end.
They never forgot. That was the thing. They never forgot that little girl.
Welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Hobart. Tonight, it was a community known for its unlocked doors and kids playing in the streets until all hours. But the calm of one warm spring evening in 1971 is shattered with the feared abduction of a 6-year-old girl, an unprecedented event that forever changed the city. Here now is a million dead ends.
Windsor, Ontario is at that time, a city of about 200,000 people. It's a border city because it sits right on the Detroit River. It's a working class city. The automotive industry at the time was very large.
We're the Motor City of Canada. We had the Big Three here for many years. There's a lot of factories that support what the Big Three do. And because of the amount of employment that Big Three were offering, it was a big immigration point in the city. So you get this influx of people from all sorts of different backgrounds working blue-collar jobs, coming to Canada to make a better life for themselves.
It was not unlike a lot of other places in the country. But where we're located made it a dead end in Ontario. So it was a transient type of city. You know, things filtered in, but to filter out, they had to go back the same way. It's not a city that they stopped in on the way somewhere else.
It was a quiet town, you know, very little action going on. You know, I think back then, I think our murder rate was like 1 or 2 a year, if that. Low crime. You know. Very nice, peaceful city.
May the 14th, 1971, we were working the afternoon shift in the Drouillard Road area.
Drouillard Road, it's kind of east central Windsor. It's coming up now, but it was always kind of a rough and tumble neighborhood. Even back then, known as Fort City.
This area that I worked, it at the time was called Number 8 District. It still looks the same as it ever did. There were a lot of hotels, bars. This used to be on here. The type of calls that we would get down here: bar fights, drinking complaints, assaults, car accidents, just kind of the run of the mill. In May of 1971, my partner and I were working in a patrol car in the Drillard Road area. It wasn't a really busy evening. At about 9:35 p.m., we received a radio call to attend an address on Drillard Road where a child was believed to have been abducted. I had only been on the police force for 5 years, so for the number of calls that I had taken, it was an unusual call. We were a little bit away, a few minutes getting down here. 1290 was a little house on the right-hand side down here that is no longer there, but it was just right here at this corner. When we got to the address, we went to the door, and we were met by the mother, who was frantic. Mrs. Topic, her first name was Paula, explained that her daughter, who was 6 years old, and her brother, who was 8, were playing in the backyard when they were approached by a strange man. The stranger offered the little girl $8 if she would walk with him down Drillard Road a little bit, and he gave her brother a dime, and the little girl left with the man. The brother went right into the house. He went straight into the house and told his mother what had happened.
Paul is there with a friend, and he explains that he sees them walking towards Seminole Road on Drillard Road. I'm not sure how quickly he went into the house at the time to relay that information, and then that's when Paul and her friend go looking for the beats.
She was described as 6 years of age, approximately 4 feet tall, blonde hair, wearing a pink blouse, and green and yellow slacks. The mother was visibly upset, so we knew that we had to treat this very gently, but we also knew that it was quite serious. We had to get something going. Real quickly, we checked the house, made sure that the little girl wasn't there, hadn't come back, that she wasn't there. The mother couldn't tell us anything about the person that walked away with the daughter, because she didn't see him. So everything that we did get came from the boy. Although because of his age, it was difficult to really get a lot. But the person was described as a male, white, early 20s, tall and slim, wearing dark clothing. When we left the house, I said to my partner, I said, if we don't find this little girl in an hour, we have a big problem. We got a hold of our radio dispatcher and gave a description of the child and the man that was with her, and had more cars sent to the area to start looking for her.
The night she went missing, it was like the largest manhunt in Windsor history. Like hundreds of people, volunteers, police, scoured the streets together, looking in alleys and streets and parks.
Looking back at time, you need some historical context. In 1971, we still had call boxes in the city of Windsor, so communications to police from dispatch were drastically different. So they get to the Topage residence around 9 o'clock. Sometime prior to that, Michael, Lubitza's older brother, had come in and said that somebody had offered him a dime and promised to pay Lubitza some money to come do a job. There's a separation there. How much of a delay before police response gets into the area, right? And it's no fault of anybody's. It's 1971. Child abduction wasn't a thing. So Paula's first thing that she does with her friend is she takes a walk down to Seminole Street, which is about a half kilometer away, and then comes back and then calls the police.
We attended the residence at 9:35, so the call would have been just a few minutes earlier than that. The little girl was last seen at approximately 9 o'clock. By 9:50, we had a description of both the little girl and the abductor that we put out on the radio.
And then you have the whole dispatch procedure where it's not instantaneous to your computer in your car. It's a more tedious process, and then officers start to get to the area. It floods in fast. A lot of officers do, even citizens start to come in and help what they called house-to-house checks. We're looking for this girl. We're trying to find her.
We went up and down alleys, streets right in that immediate area looking for this duo. We had lots of eyes on the road. There would have been at least 5 district cars, units from the downtown precinct, and we also had detective cars. There was a lot of people there. At midnight, one of the lieutenants arranged a proper grid search. And my partner and I ended up being sent to the Essex Terminal Railroad, and it was open for people to walk down that way, so it was quite common to see people taking shortcuts going down the tracks. A lot of the people involved were fathers, and there was an urgency for us to try and find her.
Welcome back. On May 14th, 1971, little Ljubica Topic is out playing with her brother and some friends when a stranger lures her away just after 9 p.m. A massive search begins. Hundreds of police and citizens scour the streets. Eventually, they find her 4 hours later. We now return to 1 million dead ends.
So at 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday, May 15th, Tom Fortier is looking through the alleys in the 1600 block of Hickory, and he shines his light into the rear yard of 1690, and I remember what he described to me. Tom said he shined the light in and he saw what he thought was a large doll lying on the ground. And unfortunately, that large doll was Ljubica. He was taken aback. You think it's a doll, and then as you get closer, and you realize that no, this is not a doll. This is the 6-year-old girl that we've been looking for, and she's been very badly injured, severely beaten, like a very high level of violence and aggression. It was evident on scene that this was a sexually motivated crime. She was sexually assaulted. Part of her clothes were removed, and ultimately the cause of death was asphyxiation. The distance that she was from where she was taken was about 1 kilometer, and the time from when it was called into the police to the time that she was located was 4 hours.
At 1:20 a.m. on the 15th, we were picked up at the railroad tracks and taken to a location on Hickory Road, and learned that the little girl had been found deceased in the backyard off of the alley. It was dark. Lighting in the area where she was found wasn't the best. The streets got lights, but the alleys don't. There were a lot of officers there, a lot of plainclothes detectives were there, and there was a cameraman there. There was an ident unit there.
When looking at the crime scene photographs, a lot of them were blurry. And the old policeman told me that the forensic officer that took the pictures had a huge family, he had 12 kids. And he was so affected by the scene that his hands were shaking. So you can imagine what the scene looked like.
We drove back to the precinct. It was pretty quiet. Being a young father at that time myself, it kind of struck home. We felt that we had done everything we could. We had got our own officers out as quick as we could, but unfortunately, it ended badly.
Right now we're standing at the corner of Drouillard Road and Franklin. Drouillard runs this way, and Franklin, if you look down that way, you can see what's left of the old Ford foundry, which was one of the biggest employers in the area in the 1970s. The Topich family's house was basically right in this area here. I believe it was the second one in. The scrapyard was around in the 70s. It was Paisner Scrapyard, but it's expanded now, and their house was torn down some time ago. There was an employee that worked at the gate at the Ford foundry, and he remembers looking through the window of his office and seeing somebody, a male, dressed in black, crouched down across the street outside the cafe, and he was looking towards where the kids were playing. He was described around 20 or early 20s or so.
The next 2, 3, 4 days a week, we were all looking for a tall, slim guy that wore dark clothing. It seemed like everybody was tall, dark, white male and wearing dark clothing. The description was not odd, put it that way. It was very close to a lot of people. And so we were jumping on anything we could because we wanted to get this taken care of and solved.
We have had many calls come in this weekend, and as a matter of fact, we have interviewed as many as 38 people as of yesterday.
Anytime that we came across anyone like that even kind of remotely looked like it might be, we would talk to them, get their information, and submit it to the investigating detectives. That happened quite a bit over the next days and weeks. But it seemed like it came to a dead end.
We'd written stories over time, just updates, police still looking for the killer, we want tips, there's rewards. I think very quickly in like 1971 there was like an $11,000 reward, which it's huge at the time, right?
Our best witness is Michael. The information that he provided is the information that seemed to be the genesis of a suspect or a person of interest profile. A very early composite was done by a person I don't think had any forensic training when it comes to creating composites. But he sat down with Michael and they drew up a simple sketch. It didn't have a ton of detail to it. A white male with a thin face. There's suggestions of potentially light brown to straw blonde hair. But steps taken in the 1970s out of desperation, like we need to find this person. Like they recognize the need to find this person. You're trying to get a description out of an 8-year-old boy who's your best witness, presenting them lineups of people who looks like the person. And I feel bad for Michael because of how much he was put through with this, paraded through so many lineups. Just please show us somebody who looked like the person who took your sister. I can't imagine the amount of trauma that poor boy went through trying to identify the person responsible. I can't imagine. There was very limited other information. We uncovered a report where there was a neighbor said she observed Lubitsa walking with an individual a few blocks away, like in between where she's abducted and where she was found. Not a whole lot of information was gleaned from that. There were kids that were playing in the area, but they never saw anybody actually walk off with her.
I think everybody figured that it was a stranger to town. It was very unusual, and it was shocking at the time. It is something that not normally happens here.
When this happened in 1971, it was a level of fear in this city that people who grew up at that time still remember it. Like, it was completely different. Their lives changed. Everybody was on high alert, where this person, this phantom, has come and taken a child and done something horrific to them. And we don't know who they are.
Welcome back to Crime Beat. The murder of 6-year-old Lubitsa Topic devastated her family and left Windsor residents shocked, enraged, and fearful. Now, everyone wanted the culprit found, of course, but 20 years later, police were still searching for her killer. Now return to 1 million dead ends.
You can see, based on the amount of reports that are coming in from 1971 to about 1973, they put a lot of work in this case. Forensics in the 70s was limited to hair fiber analysis, to footprints, to fingerprints.
Really, the only tests available at that time were for blood identification, semen identification, and potential hair identification.
Obviously, we have her clothing, and there were things like sticks and bushes that were actually seized from the area. She had a tooth broken out, and there was a thread with blood on it.
Intimate items that came from the victim herself that were collected at autopsy. They were examined for the presence of semen. And there were various hairs that were looked at to determine what type of hair they were, but not necessarily being able to source them. You could identify that there may have been blood present, but not who it might have come from. There was a pubic hair present on some of the items collected from the victim, and that's what was used going forward to be able to forensically assist the investigation. This particular case underwent some of the early DNA testing that took place in the mid to late 90s. We were able to develop a DNA profile from that pubic hair, and that's what was used going forward to be able to compare individuals and eliminate them as the source of that.
So we develop a profile in the 1990s of who we think is responsible for this crime. And that's when Ken Luxford and Glenn Hardstone dig back into this case.
When we went to visit Lubitsa's mother, she had a shrine on her mantle in her apartment, with her picture of her daughter and candles and the cross, and that's 20 years after the fact. Just seeing the shrine and talking to her, you could feel that she was hurting, very hurting. She was concerned that we'd given up, and I reassured her that we never give up. We looked at all the evidence that we had, and in the file there was already a suspect that was being developed. He looked like the composite. We spoke to his common-law wife at the time. The family had thought he'd done it. She had a grandmother that lived in the area of the alley where the body was found. So there was connection with him being there. Looking at his criminal records past, we noticed that he was always involved with younger girls, sexual assaults, and the trail had gone from Windsor to Toronto to Winnipeg. In Winnipeg, apparently there was sexual assault. He did time there, and then after that he went to Vancouver, where he eventually stabbed the girl that he was living with, and he was doing time in prison. This guy is a good suspect, and we just needed the DNA to match to prove it. I went to Abbotsford, BC, with a forensic officer, and we got his DNA. That was submitted to the forensic science people. Then it come back, there was no match.
It's one of these many times in this case where you're like, we finally got this, right? Especially once DNA comes around, where you have all these people, but now you know you got that smoking gun. If we get the DNA, we're gonna get him. So that's probably the first time where it's like, this is we're gonna get him, and it's not him. So the case kind of goes back on the shelf at that point. The lead is closed, and it sits for a few years until 2004 when Kent McMillan picks it back up.
It was hard to sift through police reports that were 4 years old, and the evidence, and tracking down people, finding persons of interest that really fit the bill. There was just so many tips. Some retired detectives would call with one. They would talk to a neighbor or a friend or an acquaintance, and somebody would mention something during the course of conversation. At odd times, the media would put out a story on Lubitsa, and then the phones would start ringing. You go back into the old files and try to match them up. In the statements that we reviewed, the brother was told to play for a while the abductor took Lubitsa away. But he immediately went into the house, informed his mother and aunt, who immediately came out of the house, headed southbound on Drouillard to Seminole Street, which is the first main crossing there. By that time, Lubitsa was not in sight, so we figured it made sense that he cut west, either through a house or on Metcalfe Street to the first alley, stayed in the alley, then cut over to Hickory when he thought it was safe. Currently in the 1600 block of Hickory Road, and behind me approximately, we had a witness sitting on his front porch, witnessed the suspect dragging a young girl who was crying southbound on the sidewalk. He went in to grab a cold drink. When he came out, he looked for them. He looked north and south, and when he looked south, they were already gone. So we figured that the suspect took her into the rear of the house where she was found. The fact that the mother and the aunt had walked all that way and had not seen Lubitsa, and surmising the whole time that the abductor and Lubitsa were paralleling them southbound at the same time is the tragedy of the whole thing. This was always a DNA case. That's all we had as evidence. In 2004, we resubmitted all the clothing from the victim up to the Center of Forensic Sciences.
You'll recall that we did have a DNA profile from the pubic hair, late 90s. It was one item. By the time the mid-2000s came, we had that same DNA profile in many locations on the victim's clothing where there was blood present. It gives you that confidence that you're dealing with the target profile, that this might be the DNA profile from the individual who might be responsible for this particular event.
We had quite a few leads that we had to work on. One of the most suspicious but promising was from a lady who lived in Northern Ontario. She had been sexually molested by her brother, who now resided in Toronto. He had a record for sexual assault, kidnapping. I received another phone call that stated he was a resident on an address in Assumption Street in Windsor, maybe a 25-minute walk from Drouillard Road where Lubitsa was living. Eventually he was excluded. There was a family in town here who, the whole family of career criminals involved in drugs, theft. We received a tip that the father of this clan had molested this person when they were young, but he had since passed away. So we had to get familial DNA. He was excluded. Some people we just approached and told them what we were investigating, and they agreed to give us a blood sample. Other times I would have to use search warrants to get the blood samples from hospitals, clinics, dentist offices. You would have some very good leads. They lived in the neighborhood. They knew the family. They had criminal records of sexual assault and kidnapping. They had, violent streaks. But in the end, they were all excluded. We excluded close to 30 people. During the time of submitting blood samples, I was advised by the center that they were running out of comparative samples. I arranged for a meeting up at the center, and I begged that they go over it one more time. And thank God they found more samples of semen on the clothing and that they were suitable for comparison. So it gave us more hope that we we're going to be able to solve this.
I moved here as a reporter in 2006, and almost immediately, especially because I was doing the crime beat a lot, people would, ask me like, "Oh, so you know about Lubica," or "What do you know about Lubica?" Right? It was always this thing that was in the ether of the city. It really bled into the fabric. People still talk about it. People who were kids remember, not really understanding why, but all of a sudden they couldn't go out to play, or their parents were locking the doors at night. They remember that very distinctly. As I was writing it over the years, I would get phone calls or emails or letters about people like, "Oh, I remember that, and I still think about it." And they didn't even know her, but it was this horrific case that just stuck in the collective consciousness of the city. And I landed an interview with Paula Tobich, Lubica's mother, and it was the first time ever in 40 years that she talked publicly about it. That interview was heartbreaking. It was clear that this incident had just punched a hole in that family. It cratered that family. And she lived with it every day of her life. She talked about still dreaming about her. She had a photo. She would walk by and still speak to her little girl that had died 44 years ago. And it was like, for her, it had happened yesterday. She not only thought about her daughter, but she thought about the killer. Obviously, she wondered who this person was, but she talked about just being sad all the time, and she hoped that maybe the killer was living that as well. She said, how could somebody do that and it not weigh on them somehow? And at the same time, the police, for the first time ever, announced that they had found this man's tooth at the scene of the crime. First time in 44 years, they had made this announcement, hoping to breathe life back into this case.
There were teeth found at the scene that would match a male suspect between the ages of 16 and 20. It's my opinion that at the scene, when she was taken to the rear of 1690 Hickory, that she fought. She fought quite violently, and I know she had a pair of hard-soled shoes, penny loafers on, probably kicked him in the mouth, which would result in losing the tooth, and then he reciprocated with some very violent actions towards her. And just thinking of her, those last moments fighting for her life, pretty bad.
When I picked up the case in 2014, there was a rush to get this case done, given the age, because the age of the case, the person that we think is responsible was around 20. Well, they're getting up there now too, and there's an increased chance that this person is also now deceased. We actually have over 700 persons of interest for a variety of different reasons. If you have 700 persons of interest, how many do you really have? You don't have any. You don't have any focus, because there's so many different things that you have to go through to eliminate. When we tested the vaginal swab in 2015, we located an evidence. It had never been tested. The seal was still intact from 1971. Comes back to the exact same profile. We put it onto databases. I sent it to the United States and had to compare it to American databases. And I sent it to Europe to have it compared there, and hoping for a hit, and it never registered a hit anywhere. So now we keep going for persons of interest. You come across these people that look like very interesting suspects, but they've been deceased. It was dead end after dead end after dead end. And some of them were so exciting, this has to be the right person. I can tell you that we eliminated at least 50 to 60 people by DNA. So around 2016, we ended up sending some of our raw DNA down to a lab in the States to have it processed to get some phenotyping. So it gives you probability predictors for things like hair color, eye color, freckling. You can potentially infer where their ancestral heritage might have come from in the world, things like that. When we get the phenotyping back, we learned that this person was very highly likely to have just had brown hair, was likely to have little to no freckling, and I think the heritage indicated more towards Scotland and Northern Europe. So what we did is we had a composite done up from what the person may have looked like in 1971, and another one, what they could look like now. We actually released those to the public. Is this triggering anybody? No leads were ever developed, and it just seems to be another dead end.
The Golden State Killer case went unsolved for 43 years.
So in 2018, Golden State Killer has just broken, and they've used investigative genetic genealogy. There are a variety of different ancestry databases in the United States where you can upload your DNA and you discover people who share DNA with you.
The way investigative genetic genealogy works is you take the suspect's DNA and you put it onto a public website and you get matches back, which means that those people are genetically matched with the suspect. And so if you build those people's family trees, the suspect will be on their family trees. It'll show how many centimorgans the match shares
with the suspect's DNA. And the higher the centimorgans, the closer the relationship. And so you can estimate that the person might be a second cousin to third cousin, or fourth cousin to third cousin once removed.
When that kit gets set up, we do come back with, for people that shared some DNA, there is more to varying degrees, but you can see different levels of shared centimorgans between these individuals and the person who killed the pizza. So now we want to find out more about these people and build family trees around their families.
If they're, let's say, a second cousin, you have to build at least 3 generations up and then come down 3 generations. So there's a lot of people to look through. We eventually came down to 2 suspects that lived in Windsor, 2 blocks from the scene, approximately the right age, and genetically looked like it would be in the right level on the family tree chart.
One of them comes up on our massive person of interest from 1971. So immediately the focus becomes, let's get DNA from these guys. And after 2 or 3 months, we were able to obtain a sample from at least the one brother, the one that was, his name was listed in the box. And I thought, we're done. And when we get the CFS report back, he is excluded. It is not him. In June of 2019, I was fortunate to meet Steve Kramer, who was with the FBI at the time, and worked on the Golden State Killer case. He facilitated getting our DNA profile onto Family Tree DNA. We're the first Canadian law enforcement kit Family Tree DNA accepted. And I remember I was actually out for a jog, and my phone goes, it's the day or 2 after we've uploaded it, and it's Steve Kramer. He's already looked at our kit. He says, hey, you've got a second cousin.
I'm in heaven. I mean, second cousin, it's like, this is awesome. And it turns out that his grandmother's brother was married to someone else in the tree. So now we know it's a descendant of this couple.
They had a son and a daughter. The daughter had one son who lived in Windsor at the time, still lives in Windsor, but based on lifestyle, really didn't expect this person to be the person responsible. The son from that intersection had 3 boys. So when you look at it, we have 5 people, including the father of the 3 boys, that could have potentially committed this crime. There are 3 of those individuals that are living. 2 of them are deceased. One of the 3 brothers actually had died in the previous year or so while we were investigating this. So I was fortunate because the focus we have was 2 individuals. One was this deceased brother, and the other was his half-brother. Based on what I was seeing with that half-brother and some of his known police contacts and sort of the similarity of some of the acts that he did compared to what we're seeing in this case, I thought it's going to be this person, right? Our surveillance team working on this person in another jurisdiction was able to get a sample from him, and the comparison comes back. It's not him. His DNA does not match. He is not the person responsible, so it's just wind out of the sails. I ended up contacting the rest home, that the other brother who was in Alberta, and we determined that there was still a medical sample. I wrote a warrant to obtain that sample. It was obtained and brought back here to Windsor from Alberta.
In late 2019, we received a lung tissue sample that was in a paraffin-embedded block, which we can sometimes work with and get DNA from, and that's what was submitted to us.
I have a great relationship with the CFS biologist who worked on this case with me. One thing I know about Melinda is she gets there fairly early. I think she gets there about 6 o'clock in the morning. She leaves early in the afternoon. So if I send her an email late in the afternoon, she's not going to get it, but at 6:01 the next day, I'm going to have a response. After I collect myself after seeing that the one half-brother is not responsible for it, I said I'm going to send her an email and just say, hey, just following up on that other sample, the tissue sample. We haven't heard back yet. And I get a bounce back from her email saying she's out of office. We'll return on Monday.
Welcome back to Crime Beat. After nearly 5 decades, 700 suspects, and countless dead ends, police think they found Lubitsa's killer. But will the DNA results prove them right this time? Here now is the conclusion of a million dead ends.
That particular morning, it was December 9th, it was a Monday, so I came in as I usually do. You grab everything out of your mailbox, and I realized, oh, the results are back from this case. This is great, let's take a look. We've had a number of comparison samples that were submitted to us over the years. This particular one was unique in that it was a biopsy sample. Often we'll typically get reference samples from people who are living, so it may be a blood sample or a buccal sample, but to get a lung tissue sample is is not typical. It's a bit unusual, and so it sort of piques your interest. I look at these papers and my breath got taken away. You look at them and you think, oh my God. And because I'm an early bird, there's nobody else around, and I'm the only one that knows. And then I have the email from Scott sitting in my inbox, and I can't tell him.
I worked an afternoon shift in major crime that night. I got home. By the time I got up in the morning, it's 11 o'clock. So I checked my email, and I have nothing from her. That's really unusual because she's really good at getting back to you.
We always have to get everything checked to make sure that it is sound and releasing reliable results. Being able to finally email him back and say, can I call you? With no answer to his question, just can I call you? That's when your heart starts racing.
I still remember I'm sitting on my couch, 12:30, phone rings, it's Melinda. And I remember her saying, like, are you sitting down? And she says, yeah, this is a match.
All those profiles you've been generating since the mid-90s, and they're the same. This matches.
A wave of emotion hits me. I've been working on this for 5 years. Ken McMillan, 8 years. Lexford and Hearthstone put a couple years on this. All these guys, dating back to 1971, who have carried this case on. And for the first time in 48 years, you've identified the person, which is what you wanted. But now it's all these extra steps, like, okay, we've got to let the family know. Then you pull up in front of the house, and you know the family's all waiting in there, and like, oh my God. Paula absolutely understood what I was telling her. It's not happiness, because it's still the death of Libitsa, but the fact that there's finally some resolution. There's a relief in that family that it was not someone that they knew.
Over the past 48 years, we've continued to search for answers in this case. As of Monday, December 9th, 2019, that search is now over.
It was a very emotional press conference. The detectives that had worked on it, even in the last few years, there was ones there that were right from the beginning. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. You could tell those officers, it meant a lot to them. And several of them said, like, this is the defining moment of my career. We got a lot of letters saying, like, I've always wondered, thank God they finally found out who did this. I'm just glad this person's not still out there. I knew Libitsa when I was in kindergarten. I visited her grave over the years. And I just always wondered, and I'm just so glad this was finally solved. So at that press conference, the police said they have solved the case. We know exactly who it was. This man moved somewhere out west after the crime, and that's it. It irked me. So they made this big show about, after all the time, finally solving this case. We know who it was, closure for the family, closure for the community, except there wasn't closure, because they refused to say who it was. They claimed it was a privacy issue because this man had died, and they wouldn't even tell us when he had died. Their argument was, since he's dead, they cannot officially charge him. And since they can't charge him, they can't release his name, because it would violate his right to privacy. Their claim was that a dead person has a right to privacy 30 years after their death. First of all, they had released names of dead suspects in the past, as of many other police forces. So it just didn't hold water for me. So we did several stories. We talked to experts. We wrote columns saying this doesn't make any sense. It's a general consensus, I think, that you can't libel a dead person. So that was one issue we had. The other one was like, it's only right that after all this time, the community should have closure too. And the third issue we had was, what other crimes out there that could this help with? Like, there might be a cold case out west where he moved. There might have been some in Windsor. We don't know. There's no way to know unless you put it out there. So we didn't let it go. The next step was a freedom of information request. We asked for the identity of the killer, his age at the time. Did he know the family? Where he lived in proximity to the family, and where did he go out west when he moved? And are you aware of any other crimes that he might have done? Denied. Police wouldn't give it to us. We appealed. Denied again. So we appealed it to the Privacy Commission. And that began more than a 3-year process of us fighting with them to get it. And then late one night, I was sitting at home, and I got an email from the Windsor Police privacy people saying, after correspondence from the Privacy Commission and after a new look at this from police management, here it is. So I found out that the killer's name was Frank Arthur Hall. He was 22, an unemployed laborer at the time, I believe. And he lived just down the street from his family. I think they lived in the 1200 block of Drouillard Road, and he was in the 1800 block.
He was from Windsor. He had some minor criminal contacts with Windsor Police Service before, and some afterwards. Nothing of significant eye-catching nature that you would look at this and say, oh wow, look at that. I found his contact card, and I could see that in May of 1971, his address changed to 1817 Drouillard Road, which is 6 blocks from the induction point and about 2 blocks from where she was murdered. He did end up migrating out west, and he lived in Edmonton for the remainder of his days. He raised children after that, and actually that was the next chapter in this case, because a few years later we decided we were going to release the name. We had his daughters know. Now I've got to go and tell them like some pretty horrific news about their father, and I've never seen two people absorb that type of news as well as these two did. Yeah, very impressed with them.
The Windsor Police did say that it was 2 parts, new management having another look at it, and the Windsor Star fighting for it for so long that they finally decided to release it. It was nice to at least acknowledge that it was related somehow to this battle we went through.
When you finally hear that the case has been solved and you hear the name, what did you think?
I never heard the name before. That name was not in the box.
When I received the word that they had found him, it was a real satisfying day.
Probably the crowning moment of my career to actually get to that point. And I think it's a crowning moment for this police service to be able to preserve that evidence and just pursue this until it was finally finished after almost 50 years.
Like from day one, with the officers on the scene, with the forensic officers, and all the officers all along. It's like, this is the culmination of everybody's hard work. And why did we do this? For the family. Worth every second I put in.
You know, you have this picture of this young girl walking away, holding hands with this monster who was about to take her life, and her brother kind of watching, not really understanding what was happening. I think that was one of the things that really struck a chord with people, was that, like, that thing never happened in Windsor before. But now it happened, and, like, it could happen to anybody. That could happen to my kid, or that could happen to your kid. And so that was a scary thought for a lot of people. It made them more concerned about their neighbor. Like, you know, we look out for our neighbor a little more, maybe.
They never forgot. That was the thing. They never forgot that little girl. And that made me feel good, because she shouldn't have been forgotten.
Though Lubitsa's family declined to speak with us on camera for this episode, they did tell us about the shadow they lived under following her death. With Frank Hall dead, they will never know why. But they are immensely grateful to the Windsor Police Service for never giving up. In solving Lubitsa's murder, they received the Linda Shaw Memorial Award for Cold Cases. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast, now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, go to the Global TV app, visit globaltv.com, or check out our Crime Beat YouTube page.